Hey guys, tonight we are going on a journey. A descent from the sunlit, familiar waters of our world into an alien empire of cold, pressure, and absolute darkness. Imagine, we are floating on the surface of the open ocean. The sun is warm, the water is blue, and life is familiar. Dolphins, whales, colorful fish. This is the world we think we know. It is loud, bright, and fast. But this is just a thin blue line, the skin of the planet's true domain. Below us lies the Twilight Zone, the Midnight Zone, the Abyss, and the trenches. And in that darkness, a lineage of creatures has evolved. The cephalopods, specifically the squid. While their cousins stay near the surface, a branch of their family tree has been falling, adapting and warping for millions of years, becoming masters of an environment that would crush us in an instant. So why do they get so weird? Why do they trade speed for gelatinous bodies, suckers for hooks, and familiar shapes for things that look like nightmares? What forces down there are responsible for these monsters? Thanks to deep-sea submersibles and ROVs, we can finally follow them down. Tonight, we will descend together, zone by zone, to find the answers. Frankly, if you were dropped here without a submersible, the pressure wouldn't even be your first problem. The sheer isolating emptiness of the open ocean would. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. That small click sends a big signal to the algorithm that long-form, serious educational content still matters. And to me, it's an incredibly meaningful show of support. Thank you so much for helping keep this channel going strong. It always fascinates me to see where you're all tuning in from. Let me know in the comments where you are in the world, and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Our journey begins in the epipelagic zone, the first 200 meters, where sunlight is king. This is our baseline for normal. You're floating in what oceanographers call the photic zone, a technical term for the layer of water that sunlight can actually penetrate. And that single fact, the presence of light, dictates every rule of life. This 200-meter deep layer is the engine of the entire ocean. The light fuels photosynthesis, allowing microscopic phytoplankton to bloom in their trillions. These tiny plants are the grass of the sea, the foundation of a food web so vast it staggers the imagination. Because this zone is a floating supermarket of energy, it's also a war zone. This is a world of visual predators. You have the streamlined, muscle-packed hunters, tuna, built like biological torpedoes, marlin with their spear-like bills, and sharks, the ancient, efficient masters of the ambush. The primary rule of survival here isn't about conserving energy or surviving pressure, it's about speed. Everything is fast. The predators are fast, so the prey must be faster. This intense pressure is what gives us the almost magical spectacle of flying fish. These aren't just a quirky oddity. They are the product of an intense evolutionary arms race. Hunted relentlessly from below, they evolved the ability to burst from the water, spread their fins like wings, and glide for hundreds of feet, using the ocean's surface as a temporary escape route. The arms race here is about who can see whom first, and who can move faster. Even the colors of the animals are dictated by the light. The classic counter-shading, a dark back and a light belly, is the standard uniform. From above, a shark's dark back blends with the darker water below. From below, its white belly is lost against the bright, shimmering surface. It's all about sight. When 19th century scientists began to explore this world, they were overwhelmed. The landmark Challenger expedition, which sailed from 1872 to 1876, was the first systematic global study of the oceans. While it's famous for later dredging up bizarre creatures from the deep, it spent most of its time cataloging the sheer, unbelievable density of life in this top layer, forming the very foundation of modern oceanography. But even this simple top layer holds debates. Oceanographers still argue whether the epipelagic zone is one single ecosystem or several stacked on top of each other. The very surface, the top few millimeters, is an environment called the Neuston layer, a skin of surface tension where specialized life, like the Portuguese man-o'-war, floats. This skin is a totally different world from the open water 100 meters down. This entire complex sun-drenched world is our control group. The creatures here, including the squids, are built for this reality. They are fast, visual, and normal to our eyes. Now we prepare to leave it all behind. We are at 200 meters. The light is fading fast, the pressure is building, and the rules are about to change. And the perfect example of a creature built for these sunlight rules is our baseline, our control group for this entire journey, the reef squid. You might know it as Sepioteuthis, or just calamari. But for our purposes, it's the normal squid. It's the standard model off which all the deep-sea variations will splinter. Its body is a masterpiece of high-speed, shallow-water engineering. You have the main body, the muscular tube called the mantle, which houses all the important organs. It's not just a sac, it's a high-pressure pump. By sucking water into the mantle and blasting it out of a flexible little nozzle called a siphon, the squid can achieve jet propulsion, darting backwards, forwards, up, or down with incredible precision. It is, in essence, a biological fighter jet. Then you have the business end, a cluster of 10 appendages. 8 are arms, typically shorter and lined with suckers. 2 are specialized feeding tentacles, long whip-like limbs that remain tucked away until they shoot out to snatch a fish or shrimp, pulling it back towards the center. And at that center, hidden behind the arms, is the main weapon, a sharp, parrot-like beak. It's a powerful tool, capable of shearing through shells and spines. And controlling this whole operation is a large, complex, donut-shaped brain. It's so large, in fact, that its brain-to-body mass ratio is one of the highest of all invertebrates, putting it in the same league as many birds and mammals. But the reef squid's most important tool, its true superpower in this sunlit zone, has nothing to do with speed or beaks. It's all about sight. This is a visual world, and the squid's primary tool is its skin. That skin is covered in millions of tiny specialized cells called chromatophores. This is the scientific evidence that underpins its entire lifestyle. Each chromatophore is a microscopic sac filled with pigment: black, brown, red, yellow. This sac is, in turn, attached to a set of tiny muscles which are all wired directly to the squid's brain. When the squid thinks rock, its brain sends a signal, the muscles pull, and thousands of pigment sacs stretch flat, instantly turning its skin a mottled, rocky brown. When it thinks sand, it relaxes those muscles, and the skin pales. This isn't a slow, hormonal change like a lizard's. It is an instantaneous, neurological flash, as fast as a thought. It is, quite literally, wearing its nervous system on its sleeve. This incredible ability is used for 2 things: camouflage and communication. It can render itself virtually invisible to the sharks and dolphins hunting it. It can mimic the dappled sunlight on the seafloor. It can even, some scientists believe, create moving patterns that mimic the ripple of light on water. But even more fascinating is the communication. This is the quirky tidbit. Reef squids talk to each other with these flashes. A male might flash one pattern at a female he's courting on his right side, while simultaneously flashing a different back-off pattern to a rival male on his left. The complexity of these flickering, zebra-like stripes and pulses is so high that scientists still argue whether it constitutes a genuine proto-language. Are these just simple signals for mate, threat, or food, or are they something more complex? We've known of these creatures for millennia, of course. This is our mainstream historical fact. The Roman author and naturalist Pliny the Elder wrote about them in his 1st century work, Natural History. He described their amazing jet propulsion system and their ink. Though, to be fair, he did tend to get them a bit muddled up with octopuses, which is a mistake we can probably forgive. The point is, this animal is a known quantity. It is brilliant, complex, and perfectly adapted. But it is adapted for the light. Its entire evolutionary toolkit, the visual brain, the chromatophore-covered skin, the high-speed muscle, is built to play the game of see and be seen. This is our starting point. And now, we're going to take this standard model and drop it into a place where none of those rules apply. We are leaving the light behind. We are sinking. You leave the 200-meter mark behind, and as you descend, the rich, warm, energetic blue of the surface world fades. It's replaced by a deep, cold, velvety indigo. We are now entering the mesopelagic zone, better known as the Twilight Zone, which stretches from 200 meters down to about 1,000. And down here, the rules of the game have fundamentally and creepily changed. The sun is no longer a life-giving engine. It is a fading, ghostly glow, far, far above. It's not nearly bright enough to let you see your surroundings. There are no rocks or sand to blend in with. There is only a vast, three-dimensional void of dim, blue-black water. But here is the new, terrifying rule. That faint glow from above, while useless for seeing, is perfect for being seen by. Any creature swimming above a predator is now a perfect, dark silhouette, an easy-to-see cutout against that faint, shimmering ceiling. This is the new threat, the central survival problem of the Twilight Zone. How do you hide when there is nothing to hide behind, and the only light left is a giant spotlight painting your shadow for every hunter looking up? Remember our reef squid? Its entire toolkit is now useless. Those million-color chromatophores? Worthless. In a world with almost no light, the ability to turn yellow or brown is meaningless. Speed? Still useful, but the predators here are evolving new, terrifying ways to hunt that don't just rely on a chase. The old playbook is gone. Evolution demands a new solution, and we find it in our first weird squid, Wattersonia scintillans, the Firefly Squid. This creature is tiny, just a few inches long, but it has mastered the new physics of this zone. It has embraced the darkness and learned to fight light with light. This is the scientific evidence that defines the next 1,000 meters of our journey. Bioluminescence. The Firefly Squid possesses specialized light-producing organs called photophores, and it uses them in one of the most brilliant and subtle forms of camouflage on Earth, counter-illumination. Here's how it works. The squid has thousands of these photophores dotting its underside, its belly. Its eyes, which are excellent, are pointed up, constantly measuring the exact color and intensity of the fading sunlight from above. Then it turns on its own lights, matching that heavenly glow perfectly. It doesn't turn them on bright. It turns them on with just enough intensity to fill in its own shadow. To a predator looking up from below, the squid doesn't cast a silhouette. It doesn't exist. It has vanished into the background, erasing itself with its own self-made light. This is not the passive camouflage of the reef squid's skin. This is active, calculated, neurological camouflage. It is a constant, desperate balancing act. Too much light, and you become a beacon. Too little, and your shadow gives you away. And this is just one use for its lights. Scholars still debate the full range of its bioluminescent vocabulary. The tips of its tentacles also have bright photophores. Are these for luring in the tiny crustaceans it eats? Are they used to signal to mates in the gloom, flashing a secret code that only its own species can understand? The answer is probably all of the above. This squid has evolved from a creature of color to a creature of light. And this weirdness is what makes it a cultural icon. This is our quirky tidbit. In Toyama Bay, Japan, these little squids are a massive tourist attraction. During their spawning season, from March to June, a combination of ocean currents pushes millions of them up to the surface in a massive, glittering spectacle. The entire bay glows with an eerie, beautiful blue light. It's so significant that the phenomenon has been designated a special natural monument in Japan. This is also, incidentally, our mainstream historical fact, as the bay has been a site for this mysterious glowing for centuries, long before we understood the science of why it was happening. It was just a local miracle. But for us, it's the first step. It's the first time we see a squid's body warp to solve a deep-sea problem, becoming, in the process, just a little bit creepier and a lot more alien. Before we meet the next creature, you have to understand the place. Let's pause the biology for a moment and talk about the physics of the Twilight Zone. This isn't just a darker version of the surface. It's a completely different dimension, governed by new laws. The most obvious change is the pressure. You're only 1,000 meters down, the bottom of the Twilight Zone, but the weight of the water above you is already crushing. You are experiencing 1,470 pounds per square inch, PS1, or about 100 atmospheres. This is 100 times the pressure you feel at sea level. The human body would be compressed into pulp. A soccer ball would be squeezed to the size of a golf ball. This immense pressure changes the very chemistry of the water, and in turn, it changes the rules of perception. Down here, your senses would lie to you. Sound, for instance, travels much faster and further in this dense, cold water than it does in air. This is our quirky tidbit. The ocean has something called the SOFAR channel, or deep sound channel, a horizontal layer where sound gets trapped and can propagate for thousands of miles. Whales use this channel to communicate across entire ocean basins, but it also means that the sound of a predator or prey is coming from a direction and distance that your land-based brain simply cannot compute. Even your sense of smell would be broken. Chemical cues, the scent of a meal or a mate, still exist, but they diffuse with agonizing slowness in the near-freezing, unmoving water. Scholars still debate how effective chemoreception really is at a distance here, or if it's just a close-range sense, useful only when you're about to bump into something. But the biggest change, the single factor that drives the evolutionary creepiness of this zone, is the new arms race of light. Remember the surface? That was a high-speed chase. This is a spy thriller. It's a game of see and be seen, fought in near total darkness. As we discussed, the only light is the faint blue glow from above and the pinpricks of bioluminescence from the creatures themselves. And this new reality forces life down two divergent paths. Path 1. Give up on sight entirely. Many creatures here go effectively blind. They let their eyes atrophy, saving the precious energy it takes to build and maintain such complex organs. Instead, they invest in other senses. They grow long, delicate antennae. They develop hypersensitive lateral lines that feel the faintest pressure waves, the footsteps of something swimming nearby. They become creatures of touch and vibration. Path 2. Double down. Instead of giving up on sight, you evolve hyper-specialized eyes, biological light detectors so sensitive they can catch a single photon. You evolve eyes the size of dinner plates, all lens and retina, built for one purpose, to catch the faintest glimmer of another creature's bioluminescent lure, or just as importantly, to spot the absence of light, a silhouette against the glow. This is the light war, and it's the primary driver of the bizarre adaptations you're about to witness. And this war is fought in a very specific color. This is the scientific evidence. As sunlight travels down through water, the water molecules scatter the light. The first colors to be filtered out are the warm ones. Reds, oranges, and yellows are all absorbed within the first 100 meters. The only color that has the energy to penetrate down here is blue, and to a lesser extent, green. The entire Twilight Zone is a monochromatic world, bathed in a deep 470 nanometer blue. Therefore, the eyes of the creatures here have evolved to match. They don't waste energy seeing red. They have evolved specialized visual pigments, or opsins, tuned perfectly to that exact shade of blue-green. And critically, they're also tuned to the blue-green light that most animals produce with their bioluminescence. It's an arms race of spies. One animal evolves a blue flashlight, the other evolves blue-sensitive night vision goggles. This is our mainstream historical fact. When early oceanographers, like those on the Challenger expedition, dredged up these animals, they had no idea. They saw them as dead, colorless, gelatinous blobs in a net. They couldn't have imagined this vibrant, hidden, silent war of light, a world of living flashlights and biological shadows, all playing a game of espionage in the cold and the dark. So, the Firefly Squid in the last section had a clever but active solution to the silhouette problem. It had to constantly work to blend in, meticulously matching its light output to the glow from above. It's a high-energy, high-maintenance strategy. But evolution is lazy in the most brilliant way. It always favors a passive solution if it can find one. So, what's better than working hard to match the background? What if you could just let the background pass right through you? This is the path taken by the Cranchidae, the glass squid family. And this isn't some rare, one-off creature. This is an entire, sprawling, and wildly successful family, with over 60 different species that have all converged on the same breathtaking evolutionary answer: invisibility. They solve the silhouette problem in the most elegant, fundamental way possible. They become transparent. In the vast, featureless, three-dimensional void of the Twilight Zone, a truly transparent object casts no shadow. It reflects no light. From the perspective of that upward-looking predator, the glass squid simply isn't there. It has achieved the perfect camouflage, not by matching the background, but by becoming the background. Now, this sounds simple, but you have to understand, this is a scientific nightmare. This is the core scientific evidence. True transparency is one of the hardest tricks in biology. It's not just about having clear skin. Your muscles have to be clear. Your nerves have to be clear. Even your blood has to be clear. And it is. Unlike us, with our iron-based red hemoglobin, squids use a copper-based blue hemocyanin, which is far less pigmented and can be made almost perfectly clear when diluted. But the real problem isn't pigment, it's physics. Light bends when it passes from one substance to another. Think of a straw in a glass of water looking broken. This bending is called refraction. If the refractive index of your body is even slightly different from the seawater around you, you will still create a faint distortion, a ripple in the water that gives you away. True invisibility requires your tissues to have almost the exact same refractive index as seawater. The glass squids have achieved this. Their flesh is a masterpiece of biochemical engineering, a delicate, watery, gelatinous structure that light passes through almost completely undisturbed. They have essentially traded muscle for water, becoming neutrally buoyant, almost invisible ghosts. But there's a catch. There are always catches. There are a few parts of a complex animal you simply can't make transparent. First, your eyes. By definition, an eye must have a retina, a dense, opaque layer of pigment to absorb light and see. And second, and far more problematically, you can't make your food transparent. The digestive gland, or liver, is a dense, messy, opaque organ, full of the colorful breakdown products of your last meal. It's a dark, solid spot in an otherwise invisible body. A dead giveaway. So what do? This is our quirky tidbit, and it is one of the most brilliant and frankly weirdest solutions in the ocean. The species Teothowenia, also called the cockatoo squid, has evolved a long cigar-shaped digestive gland. And to hide it? It holds its body vertically in the water column, pointing its head straight down. This way its long, thin, opaque organ is pointed straight up at the surface light. To any predator looking up from below, the squid is presenting the absolute smallest possible shadow. It's a marvel of adaptive posture. Other members of the family, like Galateuthis, took this a step further. They couldn't make the organ invisible, so they did the next best thing. They turned it into a flashlight. This species evolved a bioluminescent digestive gland. It's the ultimate fusion of the two strategies. The body is 99% transparent, and the 1% that can't be hidden is co-opted into the counter-illumination game. It hides its own gut by making its gut glow at the exact same intensity as the background light. For centuries, we had no idea how complex these creatures were. This is our mainstream historical fact. When 19th and early 20th century deep-sea trawl nets, like those from the Challenger expedition, were hauled up from 1,000 meters, these squids were a disaster. Their delicate gelatinous bodies, evolved for a high-pressure watery world, would simply collapse, rupture, and dissolve from the shock of the temperature and pressure change. By the time they hit the deck, they were just formless blobs of jelly. Scientists noted them, but often dismissed them as primitive or simple. They completely underestimated their complexity because they were only seeing the wreckage. It is still a subject of debate among cephalopod experts just how many species we've misidentified or overlooked entirely, all because their true, brilliant, invisible forms cannot survive the journey to our world. If the firefly squid is the spy and the glass squid is the ghost, then our next creature is the spy catcher. It's one of the most striking and, frankly, baffling examples of sensory evolution in the entire ocean. The Histiotuthis family, known more commonly as the strawberry squid, or, even more aptly, the cockeyed squid. And as soon as you see it, you understand why. This creature is a living, swimming testament to the intense, paranoid pressures of the Twilight Zone. It is an animal built from the ground up to solve one problem: how to hunt in a world that is simultaneously lit from above and pitch black from below. Its solution is so bizarre that for decades scientists thought the specimens they hauled up were deformed. The creature is completely, grotesquely asymmetrical. It looks like a biological mistake, a jumbled-up kit of two different animals. On one side of its head, it has a normal, small, sleek, blue-tinted eye. This eye is forward and downward-looking, scanning the absolute blackness of the water below. Its job is simple: to be a spark detector, to catch the faint pinprick flashes of bioluminescence from a potential meal or a signaling mate. But it's the other eye that makes this creature a legend of the deep. On the other side of its head, it has an enormous, bulging, tubular, yellowish-green monstrosity of an eye. It can be more than twice the size of the small one, and it is fixed in a permanent upward gaze, aimed squarely at that faint, shimmering ceiling of the Twilight Zone. This is our scientific evidence, and it is one of the most beautiful examples of an evolutionary arms race. This giant eye is a silhouette detector. Its enormous, bulging lens is designed to gather every last photon of that fading blue sunlight. But it's the color that provides the killer aha moment. That sickly yellowish-green tint isn't an accident. It's a filter. Think of it as a pair of hyper-specialized biological spy goggles. Remember the Firefly Squid and its counter-illumination? Its defense is to glow blue, matching the background light. This yellow filter is designed to break that camouflage. It chemically filters out the ambient blue light of the ocean, but allows other wavelengths, like the blue-green light produced by a bioluminescent creature, to pass through. The result? The blue background disappears, and the camouflaged Firefly Squid, with its imperfectly matched glow, suddenly stands out like a neon sign. It's an optical trick that allows the strawberry squid to see through the single most common form of invisibility in the deep sea. This dual system is so specialized that the squid has to adopt a unique posture to even use it. This is our quirky tidbit. The strawberry squid swims in a permanent, fixed diagonal position, head down, tail up. This semi-vertical posture is the only way it can keep its giant eye aimed at the surface and its small eye scanning the depths, hunting in two different worlds at the exact same time. And then there's the name. It's called the strawberry squid because its body is a deep, beautiful crimson red, and it's covered in thousands of tiny seed-like photophores. But in a world where everyone is trying to be invisible, why be bright red? Remember the physics from our last pause. Red light is the first color to be absorbed by water. It does not exist down here. In an environment illuminated only by blue light, a red pigment doesn't reflect any light. It absorbs the blue, effectively becoming a black hole. Being bright red in the Twilight Zone is the pigmentary equivalent of being matte black. It is the perfect camouflage for an animal that doesn't want to be seen by any other predator using a blue, bioluminescent searchlight. This is our mainstream historical fact. The creature's asymmetry was so profound that early naturalists, like the famous 19th century teuthologist, squid expert, Louis Joubin, simply couldn't accept it. When they drew the animal for their scientific journals, They would often correct it, drawing both eyes as the same size, assuming the giant bulging orb was just a grotesque deformity, a tumor, or an artifact of being violently hauled up from the crushing pressure of the deep. They couldn't wrap their minds around the idea that this mistake was, in fact, the entire point. And this is where the scholarly debate raged for years. Was this a stable, mature form, or was it just a bizarre, transitional phase in the animal's life? Recent studies, aided by high-definition ROVs, have finally settled it. This is no accident. It is a highly stable, perfectly evolved, two-faced master of the gloom. We are sinking past the 1,000-meter mark. The last faint photon of sunlight is long gone. We are now at the bottom of the Twilight Zone, a cold, dark, high-pressure lobby just above the true, eternal midnight of the abyss. And the rules are changing again. Forget the clever, high-tech camouflage of the glass squid. Forget the asymmetrical, paranoid spycraft of the strawberry squid. The creatures we've met so far have been creepy because they are alien. They are hiders, tricksters, and masters of light. You are now entering the territory of a creature that is creepy for a much more primal, much more human reason. It's creepy because it's a monster. This is not a small, gelatinous drifter. This is a 6-foot, 100-pound torpedo of muscle and malice. Meet Dosidicus gigas, the Humboldt squid. This is the first animal on our journey that isn't just passively weird, it is actively, terrifyingly aggressive. This is an animal that has taken the speed and power of a shallow water hunter and combined it with a new, brutal technology born of the deep. This isn't just some modern diver's tale or a spooky campfire story. This is our mainstream historical fact. For generations, fishermen in the Sea of Cortez and along the coast of Peru have known and feared this animal. They call it the Diablo Rojo, the Red Devil. They named it this not just for the deep, rusty red color it flashes when agitated, but for its behavior. These are not gentle giants. They are notorious for swarming fishing lines, often in shoals of over 1,000. They will strip a hook clean, steal a fisherman's catch, and are even known to attack the lines themselves, leaving deep gashes in steel cables. They have been documented grabbing divers, pulling at masks, tanks, and regulators, their behavior a terrifying mix of power and rage. But here is the truly unsettling part, our quirky tidbit. This raw aggression is apparently mixed with a profound, almost unnerving intelligence. The very few, very brave researchers who have been in the water with them and not been attacked describe a different animal. They report that the squids are intensely curious. A shoal will approach a diver, surround them, and investigate. They will gently prod the diver's camera, their wetsuit, their fins. The problem, of course, is that a squid investigates the world with its arms. And a curious pat from a 100-pound Humboldt squid is not a gentle touch. It is a grab, a probe, from an animal with the strength of a grown man, and it's armed with weapons we have not yet encountered on this journey. Let's look at those arms. This is our scientific evidence. Up until now, the squids we've discussed have had suckers, the normal, soft, rubbery cups you'd find on a reef squid. The Humboldt squid finds this idea quaint and inefficient. This is our first encounter with hooks. The suckers on its 8 arms and 2 long feeding tentacles are not soft. Each one is a muscular ring lined with 100 to 200 needle-sharp, triangular teeth made of pure, rock-hard chitin. These are not grippers. These are grappling hooks. When a Humboldt grabs its prey, a lanternfish, or, quite often, a weaker member of its own species, these hundreds of tiny serrated daggers dig in. Any attempt by the prey to struggle only makes the wounds worse, tearing flesh to ribbons before the animal is even dragged back to the squid's powerful, parrot-like beak. This is a fundamental shift in predatory technology. We have left the world of grip and entered the world of grapple and rip. This unbridled aggression is legendary, but it's also still a mystery. Scientists are still debating whether this hyper-aggression is their normal baseline state, or if it's a specific behavior triggered by stress. Some argue it's just a feeding frenzy, the same way sharks get riled up by the scent of blood. Others propose it's a recent and terrifying change. There is a growing theory that expanding oxygen minimum zones, dead spots in the ocean, which we will visit later, are forcing the Humboldts out of their natural deep water habitat and into shallower water. Here, they are stressed, starving, and packed together, driving them to the cannibalistic, diver-attacking fury that has earned them their name. The Diablo Rojo is our brutal transition. It's a creature with the brawn of the surface world, but armed with the vicious, efficient weaponry of the deep. The hooks and the aggression are horrifying enough on a single 6-foot animal, but the Humboldt's creepiness, its true power as a red devil, doesn't come from its individual prowess. It comes from its behavior. Unlike almost all other squids, which are solitary, isolated hunters, the Humboldt is a social predator. And social is perhaps too polite a word. They are a pack, a swarm, a shoal. This is the core scientific evidence that defines them. They hunt in coordinated, terrifying groups that can number over 1,000 individuals. You are in the water, in the dark, and you are not facing a squid. You are facing an army. And they are an army that talks. This is where it gets truly, deeply unsettling. Remember our normal reef squid back in the sunlight? It used its chromatophores for that beautiful, complex, flickering proto-language of camouflage and courtship. The Humboldt squid has the same technology, but it uses it for warfare. A hunting shoal of Humboldts is a silent, terrifying light show. Their entire bodies, that deep, rusty red, will flash in unison to a stark, bone white, and then back again, all in less than a second. The effect is not camouflage. It's a coordinated, seizure-inducing strobe, a silent, flickering scream in the dark. This is the central, burning, scholarly debate surrounding the Diablo Rojo. What on earth are they saying? We can see the lights, we can record the patterns, but we are completely locked out of the conversation. The theories are all, in their own way, terrifying. The first and simplest is that it's not a language at all, but a feeding frenzy signal. It's a rage state, a simple biological switch that flips from curious to consume, signaling to the entire group that food is here, and it's time to tear it apart. This theory holds water, as the flashing is most intense and rapid during a hunt. The second theory is far more complex, that it is a language. We're not just seeing an on-off flash. This is our quirky tidbit. High-speed cameras have shown that the flashes are not uniform. They are complex, rippling bilateral patterns. One side of the squid can flash a different pattern from the other. Waves of red and white chase each other down the mantle. This suggests a level of communication far beyond food. They could be coordinating the attack. You, go left. You go right. Circle it. Strike now. If this is true, you're witnessing a 1,000-member pack of super-intelligent, hook-armed predators executing a silent, high-speed battle plan. a level of coordinated hunting we normally associate only with wolves or orcas. The third theory is perhaps the creepiest. It suggests the light isn't for them at all. It's for their prey. The target of the Humboldt swarm is often a dense, shimmering bait ball of lanternfish. The theory is that the Humboldts use this high-speed, disorienting strobe effect to confuse the school, to break its cohesion, to induce a kind of epileptic panic that makes the fish easy to pick off. You aren't just being hunted, you are being psychologically dismantled by a light show before the hooks even find you. And all of this happens at a speed your mind can barely process. The Humboldt is not a drifter, it is a rocket. Using that powerful siphon, it can blast through the water at speeds up to 25 miles per hour. That is faster than an Olympic swimmer. It's faster than any human, period. One moment, you are in dark, empty water. The next, you are surrounded by 1,000 flashing 100-pound torpedoes, all moving at the speed of a speedboat, all shouting at each other in a language of light you cannot understand. This is not a regional phenomenon anymore. This is our mainstream historical fact. For most of the 20th century, the Humboldt was a known problem, but it was Mexico's problem, or Peru's problem. Then, starting in the 1990s and exploding in the early 2000s, they began to move. They invaded north, appearing in massive, unprecedented numbers off the coast of California, then Oregon, then Washington, all the way up to Alaska. They terrified fishermen, decimated local fish populations, and baffled scientists. This sudden massive range expansion is now believed to be a direct consequence of a changing ocean. Expanding oxygen minimum zones and warming waters are pushing them into new territories. The red devil has gone global. This creature represents a totally different evolutionary path. In a world of scarce food and crushing pressure, it did not become a gelatinous, passive hider. It became a hyper-aggressive, super-fast, endlessly hungry, military-grade predator. The pack is a terrifyingly efficient hunting machine. But that efficiency comes at a cost, and it reveals the darkest, most creepy side of the Humboldt's nature. This is a brutal, efficient world, and the pack has no room for weakness, and it wastes nothing. The shoal's loyalty lasts only as long as you are a perfect, functioning hunter. The moment you are injured, perhaps snagged by a fisherman's line, or wounded by a swordfish, you are no longer a comrade. You are food. This is the horrifying truth. The Humboldts are voracious, relentless cannibals. If a member of the shoal is weakened, the others will turn on it instantly, 1,000 strobing, flashing lights descending on their former packmate, tearing it apart with the same remorseless, systematic fury they would a ball of lanternfish. There is no sentiment, only survival. In the deep, a 100-pound package of protein is a 100-pound package of protein, and it is too valuable to let go. And how they do this is what makes it so brutally effective. Let's look closer at the weapons. Forget the gentle, rubbery suckers of our reef squid. The suckers on a Humboldt are a lie. They are instruments of torture. This is the core scientific evidence. Each sucker is a muscular, vice-like cup, but the rim isn't soft. It is ringed with 100 to 200 needle-sharp, triangular teeth made of chitin, the same rock-hard substance that forms an insect's exoskeleton. These are not teeth for chewing. They are grappling hooks. When the Humboldt strikes, its two long feeding tentacles shoot out, and these hundreds of micro-hooks dig into flesh. Once they are set, they are almost impossible to remove. Any attempt to pull away only causes the serrated edges to dig deeper, to tear and rip. Once the prey is hooked and secured, it's pulled from the long tentacles to the 8, shorter, more powerful arms, which are also lined with these chitinous rings. The prey is now completely immobilized, wrapped in a cage of hundreds of inward-pointing daggers, and it is dragged relentlessly toward the center of this nightmare. It's pulled toward the squid's main weapon, a powerful, parrot-like beak. This is not a mouth. It is a 2-part jet-black chitinous shearing machine, hidden deep within the muscle. It is so sharp and so powerful that it can easily slice through the spine of a large fish, or, as fishermen have discovered to their rage, snip clean through a thick, steel-braided fishing cable. This is our mainstream historical fact. For decades, fishermen have hauled up lines that are not just broken, but sheared, a clean, powerful cut that no fish could make. This combination of pack hunting, hyperaggression, and voracious cannibalism leads to one of the strangest ecological phenomena in the ocean. This is our quirky tidbit. Humboldt populations are famous for their boom and bust cycles. For years, they will be the undisputed rulers of a region, their numbers exploding into the millions. They will dominate the water column, eating everything: the fish, the crustaceans, and, of course, each other. They will literally eat themselves out of house and home, their population growing so dense that their own cannibalism becomes a primary food source. Then, just as suddenly, they will vanish. The shoal will dissipate, the numbers will crash, and for years, the red devils will be gone. Scholars are still debating the exact trigger for this. Is it a natural cycle? Is it driven by environmental changes like El Niño? Or is it the inevitable Malthusian endgame for a species that is simply too aggressive and too hungry for its own good? The Humboldt squid, then, is our gateway. It's the last creature on our list that still feels like it could belong to the surface world. It has the muscle, the speed, the aggression. But it's armed with the vicious, cold, efficient technology of the deep, and it has the anything-goes morality to match. It's showing us that as we go deeper, the rules of polite predation, of species loyalty, all begin to dissolve. The game is changing, and the monsters are becoming real. We are sinking. We leave the 1,000-meter mark, and the red devils, far above. We are now officially leaving the Twilight Zone and entering the bathypelagic zone, the midnight zone. It stretches from here, 1,000 meters, all the way down to 4,000 meters. And the first thing you notice is nothing. The last ghostly particulate photon of sunlight is gone. This is not dim. This is not dark. This is the absolute, total, perfect, and eternal absence of light. And as the blackness envelops you, you feel a new enemy. It is not a creature. It is not a hunter. It is the environment itself. It is the pressure, the sheer, crushing, physical weight of the world. Here in the upper part of the midnight zone, it's already over 1,500 pounds per square inch. By the time we reach the bottom, at 4,000 meters, that's 2.5 miles down, the pressure will be an unthinkable 6,000 psi. That is the equivalent of having a large elephant balance on a postage stamp. Or, if you prefer, 50 jumbo jets stacked one on top of the other, with their combined weight resting on your thumbnail. It is a force so immense that it bends the very laws of biology. For the longest time, this is our mainstream historical fact. We didn't think anything could survive this. In the 19th century, this was the dominant scientific theory. A brilliant and highly respected naturalist named Edward Forbes, a giant in his field, conducted extensive surveys of the ocean floor. He dredged for life deeper and deeper, and he noticed a pattern. The deeper he went, the less life he found. From this he proposed in the 1840s what became known as the azoic hypothesis. Azoic meaning lifeless. He formally argued that below about 600 meters, the combination of total darkness, extreme cold, and above all, monstrous pressure made life biologically impossible. The deep ocean, he and his colleagues declared, was a sterile, primordial void. This became the great scholarly debate of the era. Was the deep sea a desert? Or had we just not built a net good enough to find its inhabitants? For decades, Forbes's hypothesis was taught as gospel. It wasn't until later, on expeditions like the landmark Challenger voyage, that this truth was shattered. When their nets hauled up bizarre, gelatinous living things from 5,000 meters down, it proved Forbes wrong and completely upended our understanding of the planet. But why was he wrong? How can anything survive a force that can literally warp steel? The key, the core scientific evidence, is in what pressure actually crushes. Pressure itself doesn't kill. What kills is a pressure difference, and that difference is created by gas. Pressure crushes air. Your lungs, a scuba tank, the swim bladder in a fish. Any pocket of gas in your body, when exposed to 6,000 psi, will instantly and violently implode. We build machines to fight this. The famous deep-sea submersible Alvin, the one that explored the wreck of the Titanic, is a masterpiece of brute force engineering. It is a perfect sphere of titanium, several inches thick, designed to be an indestructible hollow pocket of air for its 3 human occupants. A standard military submarine, by contrast, which is designed for only a few hundred meters, would be crushed flat like a soda can if it ever drifted this deep. It's simply too big and too hollow. This is our quirky tidbit, and the classic experiment that every deep-sea researcher does. You take a normal styrofoam coffee cup, draw a picture on it, and tie it to the outside of the submersible. Styrofoam, after all, is just plastic filled with millions of tiny pockets of air. When Alvin descends to 4,000 meters and returns to the surface, that cup is tiny. It's compressed to the size of a thimble. The pressure has squeezed every last molecule of air out of it, leaving a perfect miniature rock-hard version. That is what the ocean, at this depth, wants to do to any air pocket. So the creatures that live here cannot fight the pressure. They must join it. They must be built in a way that has no air, no voids, no compressible spaces. They have to give up the very things that make our surface world animals work. And that is where the creepiness truly begins. So how does a squishy squid, or any animal, survive a force that can shrink a styrofoam cup to the size of a thimble? The answer is the most elegant and most creepy solution imaginable. They don't fight the pressure. They join it. First, and most fundamentally, the deep-sea squid has solved the single biggest problem. It has no compressible air. Zero. A bony fish from the surface, like a perch or a tuna, has an organ called a swim bladder. It's a little internal balloon that the fish inflates and deflates with gas to control its buoyancy, to go up and down. If you dropped that perch down here, its swim bladder would instantly, violently implode. Our own lungs would suffer the exact same fate. But the deep-sea squid? It's solid. Its body is a closed system of liquid and soft tissue. And water, as a substance, is wonderfully, beautifully incompressible. You can't squeeze water into a smaller space. So, If your body is almost entirely made of water and you have no internal air pockets, the pressure outside of you and the pressure inside of you are in perfect, constant equilibrium. The squid doesn't feel the 6,000 pounds per square inch, any more than you, sitting right now, feel the 14.7 pounds per square inch of Earth's atmosphere pressing on your skin. It's just normal. The force is immense, but it pushes equally from all sides, inside and out. The animal is in balance. That solves the not imploding problem, but it doesn't solve the how do I swim problem. Back in the sunlit zone, our reef squid was a torpedo. It was a dense, powerful bundle of muscle. But muscle is heavy. Muscle is denser than water. Muscle sinks. If you are a 100-pound, all-muscle animal down here in the midnight zone, you would have to spend every second of your entire life actively swimming upwards just to keep from falling into the abyss. In a world where food is an incredibly rare, precious, and accidental event, this is an unthinkable suicidal waste of energy. So evolution makes a profound and, to our eyes, a grotesque trade-off. This is the core scientific evidence. The deep-sea squid's body replaces its heavy, metabolically expensive muscle tissue with something else. A light, cheap, gelatinous tissue. Its body becomes flabby, watery, and is infused with a complex, gelatin-like matrix. This new flesh is only just barely denser than the cold seawater around it. It has become neutrally buoyant. This is the ultimate energy-saving hack. The squid can just hang, motionless, in the black, three-dimensional void. It doesn't sink. It doesn't float. It just is. It can wait, for days, for weeks, for a single tiny lanternfish to make a mistake and drift too close. It has given up speed to gain efficiency. And in the midnight zone, energy is the only currency that matters. Speed is a pointless luxury. Drifting is cheap. This right here is the reason deep-sea animals look so creepy to us. This is why when we haul them up in nets, they look like flabby, jelly-like, unformed, or primitive blobs. We see this as a deformity, a sign of weakness, or a lesser form of life. We are completely, totally wrong. It is not a deformity. It is a critical, brilliant adaptation. It is a sign of ultimate specialization. This is our mainstream historical fact. When the Challenger expedition first dredged these creatures up, their gelatinous nature was a profound puzzle. The ship's naturalists, like Henry Nottage Moseley, would describe these curious gelatinous masses in their logs, often struggling to even classify them. They looked like jellyfish, but they had the complex, advanced organs of a squid or a fish buried deep inside. It was a new form of life they hadn't anticipated, a jellyfauna that blurred all the lines. This quirky tidbit is that the jelly itself is a marvel of biochemistry. It's not just water. It's a complex matrix of collagen fibers and ammonium ions harvested from the animal's own waste products. It is, in essence, a highly structured, perfectly buoyant bag of pee. But scientists still debate how this transition first began. Did the squids slowly, generation by generation, become more gelatinous as they were pushed deeper? Or was there a rapid, explosive evolutionary leap that allowed a specific, jelly-filled lineage to suddenly colonize the deep? The fossil record for these soft-bodied animals is almost non-existent, leaving us to guess at the timeline of this profound, world-changing trade-off. So the squid has solved the pressure crisis and the energy crisis in one go. It has become a neutrally buoyant, watery ghost. It can't be crushed, and it doesn't sink. But the pressure isn't done. It has one more, far more insidious way to kill. It doesn't just crush air, it attacks the very molecules of life itself. Your body right now is a symphony of molecules. The work of being alive, breathing, thinking, moving, is done by millions of microscopic machines called proteins. And a protein's function is based entirely on its shape. Think of it like a key. A key only works because its shape is precisely cut to fit a specific lock. Your proteins are the same. They are long chains of amino acids that must be folded into incredibly complex, precise, three-dimensional origami shapes to do their jobs. If that shape is bent, crushed, or unfolded, the key is broken. The lock of life stops turning. This is the pressure's final, most insidious attack. Down here, at 6,000 pounds per square inch, the sheer crushing force of the water begins to deform these delicate molecular keys. It literally squeezes the water molecules out of the tiny crevices within the protein, forcing them to collapse, to unfold, to lose their perfect life-giving shape. At the same time, this pressure stiffens the outer walls of your cells, the cell membranes. These membranes are supposed to be soft and fluid, like olive oil, allowing signals and nutrients to pass in and out. The pressure here begins to freeze them, turning them stiff and waxy, like cold butter. Your cells can no longer talk to each other. Your entire molecular machinery grinds to a halt. This is the true chemical death that the deep sea imposes. So, how does our gelatinous squid, which has so cleverly solved the physical pressure, survive this molecular one? It floods its own cells with a chemical antidote. This is the core scientific evidence, the invisible adaptation that makes all the visible ones possible. It's a tiny, simple molecule called trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO for short. You can think of TMAO as a molecular life jacket. It's a chemical chaperone. As this plaquid molecule swarms around the squid's delicate proteins, it acts like a microscopic scaffolding. Its chemical properties are such that it grabs onto the water molecules surrounding the protein, creating a kind of hydration shell. It physically holds the protein in its correct, folded, functional shape, pushing back against the crushing force of the ocean. It is a constant, microscopic, internal, anti-pressure suit woven from pure chemistry. At the same time, it inserts itself into those stiffening cell membranes, forcing them to remain soft, fluid, and functional. This is the secret. This is how life is possible in the abyss. It's not just about being a jelly blob, it's about being a jelly blob filled with precisely the right chemical. And this leads us to our quirky tidbit, and it's one you already know. You've smelled TM grow. When a surface-dwelling fish, like a cod, dies, bacteria on its skin begin to break down the tiny amount of TMAO in its cells, converting it into a different chemical, trimethylamine, or TMA. That is the chemical that gives rotting fish its distinctively pungent, fishy smell. But here's the twist. A deep-sea fish, or our deep-sea squid, doesn't just have a little TMAO. It is saturated with it. The deeper an animal lives, the more TMAO it must pack into its cells to counteract the pressure. This is a scientific fact known as the 1-to-2 ratio. For every 1,000 meters of depth, the animal must increase its TMAO concentration by a specific predictable amount. The result? The flesh of many deep-sea animals, when brought to the surface, is almost inedible to us. It has so much TMAO that it tastes intensely bitter. Off. Or chemically. That off taste, that's the taste of high-pressure survival. This is our mainstream historical fact. For decades, this was a major challenge for the fishing industry. As trawlers began to fish deeper and deeper, they would bring up huge hauls of trash fish. Species like the deep-sea grenadier that were perfectly edible but tasted so fishy and off that no one would buy them. It took food scientists years to figure out why they tasted this way, and in doing so, they stumbled upon this fundamental pressure-fighting molecule. And yet, this beautiful, perfect system remains a profound mystery. Scientists are still locked in a deep debate about how this co-evolved. Which came first? Did a lineage of animals already have a high tolerance for TMAO, which then pre-adapted them, giving them a passport to the deep? Or did they move into the deep first and then, generation by generation, slowly, painfully, evolve this chemical defense against the crushing pressure? It's a classic chicken and egg problem. The fossil record is, as always, silent, but the result is undeniable. The squid is now fully armed. It has a gelatinous body to be buoyant. It has no air to be crushed. And it has a chemical shield to protect its very molecules. It is ready for the midnight zone. We are here. We have passed the 1,000-meter mark. We are now in the bathypelagic zone, the midnight zone, and it will be our home for the next 3,000 meters of our descent, all the way down to 4,000 meters, 2.5 miles deep. The first thing you notice is the final profound change in the environment. The last, ghostly hint of the Twilight Zone is gone. This is not dim. This is absolute black, a perfect, crushing, and eternal void. There is no sun. There has never been a sun. There will never be a sun. The only light that exists down here is the light that life brings with it. The temperature has also stabilized. It is now a near freezing, constant 2 to 4 degrees Celsius, about 35 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit. And it will stay this way. There are no seasons. There are no warm currents. It is a world of crushing pressure, eternal cold, and eternal night. And because there is no light, there are no plants. No photosynthesis. This is the great, terrifying, central problem of the Midnight Zone. It is a desert. The single most important resource in the universe, energy, is not made here. The entire ecosystem, every single bizarre creature we are about to meet, is 100% dependent on garbage falling from a world it has never seen. The entire food web is based on a slow, constant, life-giving rain from above. This is our core scientific evidence, the phenomenon known as marine snow. It's not snow, of course. It is a constant, gentle, near-invisible drizzle of detritus falling from the rich, sunlit world 2 miles above you. It's a grim mixture, the fecal pellets of tiny zooplankton, the skeletal remains of microscopic algae, fragments of dead jellyfish, dust, mucus, and anything else that can clump together and begin to sink. This snow is the biological carbon pump, the single, frail, nutrient-rich thread connecting this world of darkness to the engine of light at the surface. This is our mainstream historical fact. For the longest time, how the deep was fed was a complete mystery. Scientists knew life was down here, but they couldn't figure out what it was eating. It wasn't until the 1930s, when the explorer William Beebe descended in his bathysphere, that we got the first human description. He peered out his tiny porthole into the blackness, and in the beam of his searchlight, saw what he called a blizzard in the dark, an endless, swirling downward drift of pale flakes. He was the one who coined the beautiful poetic term marine snow. And this leads to the scholarly debate that rages to this day. Just how much food actually makes it down here? Scientists call this the export flux, and they constantly argue over the efficiency of the biological pump. As that marine snow falls, it's being eaten. The Twilight Zone is a gauntlet of hungry mouths. Does 5% of the life from the surface make it past that zone to feed the deep? Or is it just 1%? That tiny percentage difference, 1 versus 5, is the difference between a sparse desert and an impossibly empty one. Of course, there is one other food source. It's not a drizzle. It is the lottery. This is our quirky tidbit. The whale fall. Once every few decades, in any given Hatchetoffer ocean, a 40-ton whale at the surface will die. Its massive, blubber-filled carcass will sink, falling for days until it comes to rest on the seafloor 2 miles down. In this food-starved world, this is the equivalent of a 1,000,000-course banquet arriving all at once. It is an event. It can create a new, thriving, complex ecosystem. Sleeper sharks, hagfish, and bizarre, bone-eating Osedax worms that can last for 50, 70, or even 100 years. This is the world our squid must now survive. It is slow. It is cold. It is empty. The only light is bioluminescence, but its function has changed. With no background light to match, counter-illumination is useless. Light is now used for 3 new aggressive purposes: as a lure to attract the scarce prey, think of the anglerfish, as a signal to find a mate in the void, or as a defensive weapon to startle a predator. The rules are set. You must be built for ultimate patience and ultimate efficiency. Chasing food is a fool's game. You must wait, or you must trick. And that is the world that built our next deeply unsettling specimen. This is the world you are now in, a cold, pressurized food desert. And the creatures that survive here are not just weird anymore. They are solutions to problems so extreme that they look, to our surface-dwelling eyes, like pure distilled nightmares. And here, in the inky blackness, we find one of the single most unsettling, purely creepy images ever dredged up from the deep. It is a creature known as Promachoteuthis sulcus. This isn't a giant. It's not a monster of aggression like the Humboldt. In fact, this is our mainstream historical fact. It is known from only one single specimen, a tiny female, barely an inch long, that was accidentally scooped up in a research trawl net from a depth of 2,000 meters, right here in the Midnight Zone. It is one of the rarest animals on Earth. But its fame, its skin-crawling creepiness, comes from one feature: its mouth. When you look at the preserved specimen, you are confronted with something that feels biologically, fundamentally wrong. It appears to have a set of uncannily human-like, gummy teeth. Not fangs, not needles. Teeth. Like a small, imperfect, unsettlingly familiar grin. It's the very definition of the uncanny valley. A creature of the deep that has no right to look, in any way, like us. Now, let's take a breath. This is the scientific evidence. They are not, of course, teeth. Teeth are made of enamel and dentin, fused to a jawbone. This creature has none of those. What you are seeing, what your brain is screaming, is human teeth. is actually an incredibly complex, folded and puckered set of lips that completely surround the squid's actual, tiny, parrot-like beak, which is hidden deep inside. These are fleshy, muscular, labial folds. But that almost makes it worse. Why? Why, in a world of total darkness, where no one can see you, would you evolve a complex, fleshy, dentured mouth? This is our quirky tidbit, and it's a profound one, because we have only ever found one, and a juvenile at that. We have no idea what the adult looks like. None. Is this a feature of a baby that it loses as it grows? Or is there a 10-foot adult version of this swimming in the dark with a mouth the size of a dinner plate? The honest answer is that we just don't know. The file for this species is a single 1-inch animal. The rest is pure, dark speculation. And that leads to the great scholarly debate. Why the lips? With no other specimens to study, all scientists can do is speculate, and the theories are fascinating. The leading hypothesis is that it's a specialized feeding tool. Remember, this is a world of tiny, scarce food. The Promachoteuthis is likely a hunter of microscopic crustaceans, like copepods. The theory goes that these complex, puckered lips aren't for chewing, but for creating a very specific, very precise suction. It may use them to pucker up and create a tiny, perfect vacuum-like O, slurping its microscopic prey out of the water with pinpoint accuracy. It's not a mouth, it's a biological pipette. Another theory argues that they are sensory. In the absolute dark, these fleshy, complex, and no doubt nerve-rich lips could be an advanced tasting organ. It may use them to feel and smell the water, chemically detecting the faint trace of a copepod's waste trail, and then following it to its meal. Whatever the answer, this tiny creature is the perfect, haunting symbol of the Midnight Zone. It's not a monster of size or power. It's a monster of bizarre specialization. It is a tiny, incredibly rare, almost unknown solution to a set of survival problems we can barely even comprehend. And it just so happens that this solution, this perfect piece of evolutionary engineering, looks exactly like a set of human teeth. It's a reminder that down here, evolution is not concerned with our comfort. It is not concerned with aesthetics. It is a blind, relentless, pragmatic force. And if the most efficient way to suck up a bug is to evolve a set of fleshy, human-like dentures, then that is exactly what it will do. That little toothed squid, the Promachoteuthis, is really just a bizarre outlier, a one-specimen wonder that gives us a jolt of the uncanny valley. It's a funhouse mirror monster. But the real creepiness of the Midnight Zone's predators isn't in a familiar, fleshy grin. It's in the cold, alien, and hyper-efficient engineering of the true hunters. Down here, in the absolute pressurized black, you have two and only two options for getting a meal, and both are dictated by the crushing need to save energy. Remember, you're a gelatinous, neutrally buoyant balloon. You can't chase anything. A high-speed pursuit is a suicidal waste of calories. So, option 1. You become a passive sensor. You become a living net, a drifting web of filaments, and you just wait for something to bump into you. We'll meet that ghost later. Or you choose option 2. You become a trapper. You don't move. You let the food come to you. You hang motionless in that cold, black water, and you make your own light. You become a deep-sea angler, but instead of a clumsy, modified fin spine, you have a body covered in the most sophisticated, multicolored light show imaginable. This is the path taken by many of the squids here. This is our core scientific evidence. They use their bioluminescence not for camouflage, there's nothing to hide from, but as a lure. They are, in essence, a living, intelligent fishing lure. Take the fire shooter squid, Lycoteuthis. It is a masterpiece of biological illumination. Its body is covered in over 20 large, complex photophores, and they are not all the same. It has light organs that glow a cool blue-green. It has others that glow a deep ruby red. And it has others that are a pale, ghostly white. This has led to a fascinating scholarly debate. Why the color variety? Why not just one bright blue-green light, the color most deep-sea eyes are built to see? The simple theory is that it's mimicking the specific light patterns of the small, glowing plankton or crustaceans that its prey, like a small fish, wants to eat. It's a highly specialized, specific trap. But the more compelling theory is the one from our outline. It's not a single trap. It's a smorgasbord. It's a floating advertisement for every kind of meal. By producing multiple colors, the squid can attract a much wider, less picky menu. Is there a creature nearby that has evolved to only hunt for the red glow of a particular shrimp? The Lycoteuthis has a red light for that. Is there another that prefers the blue-green pulse of a copepod? It has that too. It's a floating one-squid buffet, a biological open sign for anything and everything swimming in the dark. So you are this tiny, hungry fish. You've been swimming for days in an empty, cold desert. And then, in the distance, you see it. A beautiful, enticing, gentle cluster of blue and red lights. Food. You've hit the jackpot. You swim closer, closer. And the trap springs. The squid's 2 feeding tentacles, which have been coiled up and hidden, explode outwards with astonishing speed. Remember the Humboldt's hooks? Many squids here have similar, if smaller, versions. You are instantly snagged, hooked, and held fast. And now your journey begins. You are pulled, helpless from the dark, cold water into a writhing, muscular cage. The squid's 8 shorter, powerful arms envelop you, and their own hooked suckers dig in, holding you in a straitjacket of pure muscle. You are now being moved relentlessly toward the center of that cage of arms, toward the squid's beak. This is the first part of the killing machine. It is, as we've said, a parrot-like beak, 2 pieces of jet-black, razor-sharp chitin. There are no teeth. It doesn't chew. It shears. The powerful muscles surrounding it drive the 2 halves together with enough force to snip a fish's spine in half. Or, as we learned with the Humboldt, to cut through steel cable. It is a biological guillotine. But the horror is not over. The beak slices you into manageable chunks. But how does it eat? This is where we find our quirky tidbit, and it's something that is, in its own way, far creepier than the Promachoteuthis lips. It's the radula. This is a feature common to almost all mollusks, snails, slugs, and squids. It is, for lack of a better term, a tongue ribbon. Imagine a flexible, muscular tongue that is covered, from end to end, in thousands of rows of tiny, backward-facing, microscopic teeth. It is a living chainsaw. It's a conveyor belt of daggers. As the beak snips off a piece of your flesh, this radula extends. The tiny hooks grab that piece, and then the whole ribbon pulls it backwards into the squid's throat. Shh. Another piece is cut. Shh. The radula pulls it in. It is a one-way, inescapable mechanical ratchet of death, dragging food down its gullet. This amazing, horrifying organ is our mainstream historical fact. It was a mystery for centuries. We knew from whale stomachs that something was eating squids, and we knew from beaks that squids were eating something. But the full feeding mechanism was unknown. It was the great 19th century British naturalist Sir Richard Owen, the man who famously coined the word dinosaur, who also did the definitive work on the radula. He was the one who systematically studied this lingual ribbon across thousands of mollusk species, marveling at its beautiful and complex structure, finally understanding it as the shared ancestral tool that linked the garden snail to the monster in the deep. He saw it as a marvel of creation. You, on the other hand, as you are being pulled apart by 1,000 tiny hooks, would probably just call it a nightmare. We are now deep in the midnight zone. We've seen the bizarre specialists and the luminous trappers, but this zone has a special hidden feature. It is not just one uniform block of dark, cold water. Within this zone, in vast patches all over the world's oceans, is a layer of extreme suffering. It's a place where the rules of life and death are bent even further. It's a place where the water itself can kill you. It's called the Oxygen Minimum Zone, or the OMZ. You're drifting into it now. It's a layer of water, often hundreds of meters thick, that is almost completely devoid of oxygen. Due to a complex combination of ocean currents and the decay of all that marine snow falling from above, the chemical-eating bacteria in this layer have simply used up all the available O2. The water here is hypoxic, or in some places anoxic. It is, for all intents and purposes, a suffocating dead zone, sandwiched in the middle of the ocean. Any normal animal that wanders in here, a fish, a shark, even the aggressive Humboldt squid, will choke. Their gills will find nothing to extract. They must avoid this zone at all costs. It is a desert within the desert. And yet, as you drift through this suffocating, empty, impossible water, a shape appears. It is a creature that has embraced this void. It lives here. Meet the ultimate other, the creature that is not a squid, not an octopus, but something else entirely. Meet Vampire infernalis. The name is one of the most metal in all of biology. It literally means the vampire squid from hell. This is our mainstream historical fact. When this creature was first hauled up from the deep by the German biologist Carl Chun on his Valdivia expedition in 1903, it shattered the tree of life. Scientists looked at this thing and were baffled. It had 8 long webbed arms, like an octopus, but it also had 2 strange, tiny thread-like filaments that were different from anything else, and it had the fins of a squid. It didn't fit anywhere. It was so profoundly, fundamentally alien that scientists had to create an entirely new taxonomic order just to classify it. They named it Vampiromorphida. It is a living fossil, the last surviving member of an ancient lineage that split off from the common ancestor of octopuses and squids hundreds of millions of years ago. It is not a creepy squid. It is a ghost from a different, older, and stranger world. And its creepiness is that it has chosen to make its last stand in a place that nothing else can tolerate. So how does it live in the oxygen minimum zone, a place with 3% of the oxygen a human would need to survive? This is the core scientific evidence. The answer is in its blood. Your blood is red because it's built around iron, hemoglobin. It's good, but it's not super efficient. The vampire squid's blood is different. It is blue. It's built around a copper-based molecule called hemocyanin. And this hemocyanin is a supermagnet for oxygen. it is astoundingly efficient. It can latch on to the few, stray, precious molecules of O2 in that suffocating water with a tenacity that iron-based blood can only dream of. It can successfully extract and transport oxygen from water that is 97% depleted. It is a creature that can breathe where there is no air. But this superblood is only half the solution. It can get the oxygen, but it still has almost none to use. So it has paired this adaptation with another. It has the lowest metabolism of any deep-sea cephalopod ever measured. Its body is a masterpiece of low and slow. It is a cold, gelatinous, slow-motion zombie. Its resting heart rate is barely a few beats per minute. It just hangs. It drifts. It waits. It survives on an energetic budget that would kill any other complex animal in minutes. And this leads to our quirky tidbit. Its terrifying name is a complete and total lie. It is the least vampire-like creature in the entire ocean. The name was given in a fit of gothic horror by its discoverers. They saw the dark, velvety black skin. They saw the cape of webbing between its arms. And they saw its eyes, which in the harsh lights of the ship would glow a dull, eerie red, a simple trick of light reflection. They put it all together and named it the Vampire Squid from Hell. But it is not a predator. It is not a bloodsucker. As we'll see, it is one of the most docile, gentle, and bizarre creatures in the void. But this habitat choice remains the great scholarly debate. Why live here? Is this a brilliant evolutionary move? A strategic retreat into a fortress where no predators can follow? Is it a refuge? By living in the OMZ, the vampire squid is safe from the fast-moving sharks, the sperm whales, and the giant squids that physically cannot enter its suffocating home. Or was it pushed here? Is this a last, desperate stand? Is the vampire squid a relic that was so outcompeted by the newer, faster, better squids and octopuses that it was forced into the one miserable, toxic closet of the ocean that nobody else wanted? Is it a master strategist, or the last loser in a billion-year-old game? So, if the vampire squid from hell isn't a vampire, what is it? Its terrifying name, as we've learned, is a complete lie, born of gothic human imagination, not scientific fact. It is not a predator. It has no hooks. It doesn't hunt, it doesn't chase, and it doesn't suck blood. In fact, it is one of the most passive, gentle, and utterly bizarre creatures in the entire ocean. Its true creepiness isn't in its aggression, it's in its defense. In a world of total darkness, a normal squid's primary defense is its ink sac. When threatened, it shoots a cloud of black pigment, creating a smoke screen, a visual decoy, that the predator will attack instead. But here in the Midnight Zone, a cloud of black ink is pointless. It's like trying to make a shadow in a pitch-black room. It's a complete waste of precious energy. The vampire squid, in its ancient wisdom, did away with its ink sac millions of years ago. It evolved something far, far stranger. The key is its anatomy. This is the mainstream historical fact that so baffled its discoverers. Its 8 arms are connected by a deep, beautiful, velvety black cape of skin. It looks like a goth rock octopus. When a predator approaches, say a deep-diving shark or a large fish that has braved the low oxygen water, the vampire squid does not flee. It can't. It has that ultra-low metabolism. It has no energy for a chase. Instead, It performs one of the most extraordinary defensive maneuvers on Earth. It pulls its cape up and over its entire body. It flips its webbed arms inside out, covering its soft head and mantle until it resembles, well, nothing on Earth. This is our quirky tidbit. It's called the pineapple or pumpkin defense. The animal transforms itself into a spiky, black, unappetizing ball. The spikes are the long, fleshy, harmless tendrils called cirri that line the arms, now pointing outwards, making it look intimidating and difficult to swallow. But this is just stage one. This is the shield. The real trick, the escape, is the scientific evidence. As the predator bites at this spiky, unpalatable ball, the vampire squid activates phase 2. The tips of its arms, which are now waving around at the top of the pineapple, are packed with specialized bioluminescent organs. It doesn't just hide. It fights back with light. It ejects a bomb, not of ink, but of a thick, sticky, glowing mucus. It's a biological light grenade. Imagine you are that predator, your eyes hyper-adapted to catch the faintest, tiniest spark of life in the black. Suddenly, the thing you are trying to eat explodes in your face in a dazzling, blinding cloud of sticky, glowing slime. It's confusing. It's disorienting. And it's sticky. It gets in your eyes, in your gills. You are suddenly covered in a look-at-me beacon that you can't get off. And while you, the predator, are reeling from this sensory assault, blinded and disoriented, dealing with this sticky, luminous goo, the vampire squid does its final brilliant move. Having ejected its light bomb, its own body has gone completely, perfectly dark. It's now an invisible, non-glowing, black blob. It stops all movement, contracts its body, and simply drifts. It plays dead. It vanishes, a black shape in a black world, letting the current carry it away. By the time your eyes adjust, by the time you realize you have a mouthful of nothing but empty, glowing slime, the vampire squid is gone. It has returned to the suffocating, safe, black embrace of its fortress. This amazing, multi-stage defense is a masterpiece of energy conservation. But scholars still debate its true, primary function. Is it really for those deep-diving visual predators from above? Or is it a defense against other unknown hunters of the oxygen minimum zone, creatures that might hunt by touch or by sensing electrical fields, and for whom a cloud of sticky, chemically annoying goo would be just as effective a deterrent? It's an all-or-nothing high-stakes defense for a creature that has traded all normal cephalopod skills for a life of pure, patient metabolic survival. This creature is a fortress. It can breathe where there is no air, and it can defend itself with a bomb of blinding, sticky light. But this just deepens the mystery. If it's a living fossil with the lowest metabolism in the ocean, and it's not a vampire, and it's not a predator, what on earth does it eat? This was the central, agonizing puzzle for a solid century. This is our mainstream historical fact. From its discovery in 1903 all the way into the 21st century, nobody knew what the vampire squid ate. Scientists would dissect the rare specimens they managed to catch, and their stomachs were almost always empty. On the rare occasion they found something, it was a confusing, unidentifiable mush. Bits of tiny crustaceans, yes, but also algae skeletons, fish scales, and even the houses of single-celled organisms. It looked like garbage. It didn't look like the clean, half-digested remains of a kill. It just looked like the random gunk you'd find on the seafloor. For 100 years, the assumption was that it must be a predator, like all other cephalopods. We just weren't smart enough to figure it out. Maybe it was a stealth hunter. Maybe it was a scavenger of very recent kills. The mystery remained, and it was a gaping hole in our understanding of this unique animal. The answer finally came in 2012, and it came not from a dead, dissected specimen, but from watching the animal live. This is our core scientific evidence. Scientists at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, MBARI, led by Henk Jan Hoving, used their high-definition deep-sea ROVs to do something no one had ever really done. Just watch the vampire squid in its natural, suffocating, pitch-black habitat. They filmed hours and hours of footage, and they finally, definitively, saw it. The vampire squid is a detritivore. It's a garbage eater. It is the only known cephalopod in the entire world that does not hunt live prey. Its entire complex ancient lineage, this ghost from hell, survives by eating marine snow. That mush. In its stomach, it was the garbage. It was the fecal pellets, the dead plankton, the mucus, the snow that we talked about, the only thing on the menu in the Midnight Zone. But how does it do this? How does a squid eat snow? This is where the creature's most alien feature, its quirky tidbit, finally makes sense. Remember how it wasn't an octopus or a squid? How it had 8 webbed arms, but also 2 other things. This is it. Tucked away in pouches on its body, the vampire squid has 2 long, thin, retractable filaments. These are not tentacles. They are not arms. They are unique, ancient, sensory appendages that are a relic of its long-lost ancestors. And they can stretch out to be 8 times its own body length. Here is what the MBARI scientists saw. The vampire squid just drifts. It hangs, motionless, in that suffocating black water, a true zombie of the deep. And it deploys one of these impossibly long, thin, sticky filaments, stretching it out into the dark like a spider's web. And then it waits. It waits for that gentle, constant blizzard of marine snow to, by pure random chance, bump into its filament. When it senses a hit, a fecal pellet, a dead copepod, a clump of mucus, it doesn't reel it in. That would be too much energy. No, it's far more elegant. It sweeps its arm out to the filament, and using its finger-like Siri, it wipes the clump of gunk off the filament, transferring it to the arm. Then it pulls that arm in, scrapes the gunk off with its other arms, and slowly, methodically, secretes a ball of mucus to glue it all together. Once it has a nice little gunk ball, it pops it into its beak. This is its life. A slow, patient, floating spiderweb of a creature, delicately harvesting the dust from the world above. This discovery completely rewrote the book. It proved that this ancient, vampiric creature was, in fact, the deep-sea equivalent of an earthworm, a gentle, passive, hyper-specialized recycler. But this is where the scholarly debate now rages. Is this feeding strategy primitive, or is it hyper-advanced? One school argues it's the primitive option. It's what the ancestors of all cephalopods did, before the modern squids and octopuses evolved their big brains, their high-speed siphons, and their complex predatory lifestyles. In this view, the vampire squid is a loser that never evolved, a creature stuck in the past, eating dust while its cousins learned to hunt. The other school, however, argues the exact opposite. that this is the most advanced, specialized strategy of all. In the Midnight Zone, the single most abundant, reliable, and low-risk food source is not the rare, fast-moving fish. It's the marine snow. It's everywhere. While all the other predators are wasting energy, sitting in the dark, flashing their lures, praying for a meal to find them, the vampire squid is guaranteed a meal. It just has to put out its net. In this view, it's not a relic. It's a genius. It's the one creature that figured out how to farm the void, surviving on a food source that no other complex predator will touch. It has achieved perfect Zen-like efficiency. We are now descending past 2,000 meters. We are in the realm of true giants, and before we meet the actual flesh and blood animals, we have to meet the myth. Because in this one specific case, the creepiness of the creature is not just a biological reaction. It is a deep, primal cultural fear, a ghost story that our species has been telling itself for thousands of years. We are in the lair of the kraken. The kraken. The word itself is chilling. This is our mainstream historical fact. The legend, as we know it, comes from the 18th century Norwegian sailors. It was first given a scientific veneer by the Bishop of Bergen, Erik Pontoppidan, in his 1755 work, The Natural History of Norway. And his descriptions were not of a simple, large squid. He described a creature of a floating island, 1.5 miles in circumference. He claimed it would rise from the depths, and that when it submerged again, it created a whirlpool so vast it could pull the largest warships down to the seabed. To the sailors of the time, this was not a cryptid. It was a known, documented, and absolutely terrifying hazard of their job. But these stories are far, far older than 18th century Norway. Go back to 77 AD. The Roman author and naturalist Pliny the Elder, in his encyclopedic work Natural History, describes a polypus, a term he used for both octopuses and squids, that haunted the coasts. He recorded as fact the story of a monster that had a head the size of a cask, about 90 gallons, and arms 30 feet long. He claimed this creature would crawl out of the sea at night, walk to the fishermen's coastal depots, and steal their vats of salted fish. For centuries, we dismissed these accounts. They were just myths. They were the fantastic, superstitious ramblings of sailors who had spent too long at sea, drinking too much rum. But we were wrong. They weren't myths. They were fragmented data. They were the terrified, half-understood, and perfectly rational reports of real encounters. Imagine you are a sailor in 1750. In the middle of the Atlantic, a single 50-foot-long tentacle, as thick as a tree trunk and covered in suckers the size of dinner plates, floats past your ship. You have no context. You have never seen a squid. What else can you assume but that this arm is attached to a creature the size of an island? Imagine you are a whaler in 1810. You harpoon and kill a 50-ton sperm whale. As you're flensing it, cutting it open for blubber, you find its stomach. And inside, you find a single jet-black, parrot-like beak that is the size of your own head. What creature, what demon, could this possibly have come from? Imagine your small 20-foot fishing boat is suddenly, violently, pulled backwards and down by an unseen force. It must be the kraken. This is the core of it. The creepiness of the giant squid existed in our minds, in our culture, for 1,000 years before we ever proved it was real. It was the ultimate symbol of the terrifying, hostile, and unknowable deep. The ocean was the last, great, Here be monsters on our maps, and the kraken was its king. This led to our quirky tidbit, the tragic story of the naturalist Denis de Montfort. Around 1802, he became obsessed with these stories. He was one of the few academics who believed the sailors. He collected all the reports, and in his Scientific Encyclopedia of Mollusks, he famously published an illustration, a drawing of a colossal octopus, he got the species wrong, with its arms wrapped around a 3-masted, fully rigged sailing ship, pulling it and all its screaming sailors down to the doom. This was the great scholarly debate of the 19th century. On one side, you had the academic, rational scientists in their universities in London and Paris, who scoffed, who called de Montfort a fraud, and who insisted the sailors were either lying, drunk, or mistaking a log for a monster. On the other side, you had the sailors themselves, the men who had actually seen these things, and a few believers like de Montfort. His academic career was destroyed. He was laughed out of science, and he died in poverty, a crazy man who believed in sea monsters. The tragic irony, of course, is that he was right. The fear we feel then is inherited. It's a thalassophobia, a fear of the deep that has been passed down generation to generation. We are primed to be terrified of this creature. And now, after centuries of myth, we are finally going to meet it. And so, we finally meet the animal behind the myth. The kraken has a name, Architeuthis dux, the giant squid. This is the creature that haunted the nightmares of sailors, the colossal polypus of Pliny, the floating island of Bishop Pontoppidan. And for almost all of human history, it remained a perfect, terrifying ghost. The proof of its existence was always second-hand, gruesome, and fragmented. It was a single 30-foot tentacle found floating in the Atlantic. It was a row of circular scars, the size of teacups, found on the skin of a sperm whale. It was a jet-black beak, the size of a man's fist, pulled from that whale's stomach. But most of all, the proof came in the form of carcasses. This is our mainstream historical fact. The ocean would, on rare, violent occasions, vomit up its monsters. The most famous case is the Stronsay beast of 1808. After a furious storm, a massive, 55-foot-long thing washed ashore in the Orkney Islands of Scotland. It was rotting. It was shapeless. It had a mane of bristles, likely frayed tendons, and strange, fin-like appendages. The locals had no idea what it was. Scientists debated for decades if it was a new kind of sea serpent, a decayed basking shark, or something else entirely. It was a globster, a wonderful 1950s-era term for any unidentifiable organic mass that washes up from the ocean. This was the quality of data we had. Terrifying, massive, and completely falling apart. The turning point, the moment the giant squid swam from myth into fact, happened in 1861. This is the scholarly debate that finally came to an end. It wasn't a fisherman this time. It was the crew of the French warship Alecton. These were naval officers, credible witnesses. In the open ocean near Tenerife, they encountered it. A colossal squid, reddish-brown, thrashing at the surface. They opened fire with their rifles, but the bullets just sank into its soft flesh. They harpooned it, and then they tried to haul it aboard. This is the moment that revealed the creature's true nature, and our quirky tidbit. The kraken of legend was an island of iron-hard muscle. The actual animal, as the Alecton's crew discovered to their frustration, is surprisingly delicate. As they tried to winch the 2,000-pound 20-foot, and this was a small one, animal out of the water, its own immense weight, combined with its soft, gelatinous body, was its final defense. It tore in half. The crew was left with a nightmarish, writhing 10-foot tail end, which they triumphantly hauled on deck. The rest of the monster sank back into the deep. They had their proof, but they also had their puzzle. The monster was real, but it was also flimsy. This is the scientific evidence. Just like the other creatures of the deep, the Architeuthis is a concession to its environment. It lives in the midnight, bathyal, and abyssal zones, from 1,000 all the way down to 4,000 meters. To survive in that vast, empty water column, it has traded the dense, heavy muscle of a Humboldt for a more gelatinous, ammonium-infused body. It is a giant, the longest squid on Earth, at a confirmed 40, 50, maybe even 60 feet. But it's not a brute. It's not a brawler. It is a massive, neutrally buoyant, lightweight drifter. It is a ghost. The creepiness of the kraken isn't in its power, as the myths suggested. It's in its scale, and in its eyes. The giant squid's most famous, most monstrous feature is not its arms, or its beak, or even its size. It's its eye. And it is an organ that seems to defy all biological reason. This is the scientific evidence, and it is a cold, hard record book fact. Architeuthis dux possesses the largest eye in the entire animal kingdom. Not just today, but ever. Not even the largest dinosaurs, not even the 100-foot-long blue whale, has an eye that comes close. We're talking about an eyeball that is 11 inches, nearly 30 centimeters across. It is the size of a dinner plate. It is the size of a basketball. Its lens alone is the size of a large orange. It is a biological telescope, an impossibly huge, complex, and energy-intensive piece of machinery. And for decades, this was a profound, baffling mystery. Why? Why, in a world of absolute, total, eternal black, would you waste the precious, scarce energy to build and maintain an eye this enormous? You can't see better in the dark. When there are 0 photons, a bigger eye doesn't help. It's like building a bigger bucket to catch rain in a desert that has no clouds. It makes no evolutionary sense. But it does make sense. We just had the wrong idea. This is the great scholarly debate that was finally settled by a brilliant piece of biomechanical modeling. The eye isn't for seeing in the dark. It is for seeing sparks in the dark. The eye is a long-range, early warning anti-predator shield, and it is built from the ground up for one single terrifying purpose: to see the sperm whale. Here is the leading theory, which is now the scientific consensus. The giant squid is a drifter, yes, but its one true mortal enemy, the sperm whale, is not. The whale is a high-speed, 50-ton torpedo that actively hunts the squid, diving 3,000 meters down to find it. But when a 50-ton object moves, even in the dark, it doesn't move cleanly. It disturbs the water. And the water, as we know, is full of tiny bioluminescent plankton and bacteria. As the sperm whale charges through the water on its attack run, its powerful movements create a bow wave, a shock wave of disturbed water. This disturbance agitates the plankton, causing them to flash, tiny, faint pinprick sparks of blue-green light. This is called bioluminescent disturbance. To a small-eyed creature, this faint, distant sparkle would be invisible. But to the giant squid, with its 11-inch, dinner plate-sized lens, it's a biological light bucket, It gathers every last stray photon of that distant flash. The calculations show that this enormous eye can detect the faint, glittering shock wave of an approaching sperm whale from over 120 meters, nearly 400 feet away. This is the whole point. This is the arms race. In the total blackness, that 400-foot warning is the difference between life and death. It's a 5-second head start. It's just enough time for the flimsy, gelatinous giant to blast its siphon, deploy its one fast twitch muscle response, and shoot itself out of the whale's attack path. This is our quirky tidbit. The eye is so specialized that its pupil can be the size of a keyhole or dilate to be over 9 centimeters, 3.5 inches, wide, giving it a light-gathering ability that is, frankly, almost magical. This is also our mainstream historical fact. For the longest time, the only eyes we had were from rotted, washed-ashore carcasses. They were often deflated, cloudy, and looked more like gray jelly than a functioning organ, leading scientists to underestimate their true complexity. It wasn't until the 1980s, when a perfect fresh specimen was caught, that we finally got to see this biological marvel in its true, enormous, basketball-sized glory. It is not an offensive weapon. It is the most sophisticated defensive shield on the planet, a monster's eye, built to see a monster coming. This is it. This is the battle we were promised. This is the real clash of the titans. It is not a myth. It is not a what-if. It is a biological war, fought every single day in total darkness, 2 miles below the surface of the planet. It is the giant squid versus its one, true, and only mortal enemy, the sperm whale. The whale, Physeter macrocephalus, is a creature from a different world. It is an air-breathing mammal, but it is also the most dominant deep-diving predator on Earth. It is the largest toothed animal in existence, a 50-ton, 60-foot leviathan. And it does not hunt in the sunlit world. It is a specialist. It is a biological submarine. It will take a single, enormous breath at the surface. Its blowhole will snap shut, and it will dive. It will plunge vertically, down, down, past the 1,000-meter mark, past 2,000, sometimes even down to 3,000 meters. It is one of the only warm-blooded animals that can willfully invade the squid's cold, black, pressurized fortress. And how does it hunt? Not with sight. Down here, its eyes, though functional, are almost useless. It hunts with sound. The sperm whale possesses the most powerful sonar in the animal kingdom. It has a massive, complex organ in its huge, square head, the spermaceti organ, which it uses to generate a series of focused, deafening clicks. These clicks are so powerful, at over 230 decibels, they are the loudest sound produced by any animal. They are literally loud enough to vibrate a human being to death. The whale is shouting into the void, a biological sonar pulse, and it is listening for the one faint echo that it craves. The return signature of a large, soft, 60-foot, gelatinous body. And this is where the squid's giant defensive eye comes into play. You have a 50-ton monster pinging you with sonar, charging at you through the dark. And you have a 60-foot neutrally buoyant ghost with a basketball-sized eye, built to see the sparkle of that monster's approach. This is the battle. A fight of sonar versus sight. A war of muscle versus... well, we don't know. This is the great, tantalizing, haunting reality. This is the great scholarly void. We have never, ever seen this fight. Not once. It is the most epic, large-scale predator-prey battle on our planet, a clash of 50-ton titans, and it has 0 human witnesses. It happens in a place we cannot go, in a darkness we cannot penetrate. Everything we know, all of our facts, are just forensics. We are detectives, arriving at a cosmic crime scene, forced to piece together the story from the gruesome evidence left behind. And the evidence is unmistakable. This is our core scientific evidence. For centuries, whalers, when they killed and cut open a sperm whale, would find its massive, 4-chambered stomach full of the one single part of a squid that is completely, totally indigestible. The beaks. This is our quirky and frankly morbid tidbit. The squid's sharp, parrot-like beak is made of pure, rock-hard chitin. It does not dissolve. It does not break down. The beaks just accumulate. A single whale's stomach can be a graveyard containing hundreds of these black, ominous-looking weapons. A lifetime's tally of all the krakens it has successfully hunted and eaten. For decades, this was the only way scientists could even estimate how big the squids were. They would find a beak the size of a man's fist and think, my God, what kind of animal did this belong to? The second piece of evidence is written all over the hunter's body. This is the victim fighting back. The massive square heads and jaws of old adult sperm whales are almost always covered in scars. But they are not the slashes of a shark's tooth. They are long, white, crisscrossing, and perfectly circular puckered wounds. They are the battle damage. They are the last, desperate, defiant fingerprints of the giant squid, the marks left by its powerful, toothed sucker rings as it raked its 30-foot arms across the whale's tough, 14-inch thick hide in its final moments. And this speaks to the profound, almost unbelievable mystery of the squid itself. This is our mainstream historical fact. Think about this. We have known of the kraken for millennia. We've had its beaks. We've had its scars. We've had its rotting carcasses. But the first time a human being ever saw this monster alive and well, in its own natural deep-sea habitat, it didn't happen until 2004. A Japanese team, led by Dr. Tsunemi Kubodera, after years of patiently trying, finally managed to get the first still photographs of one by dangling a baited camera line 3,000 feet down. The first video of an adult giant? That didn't happen until 2012. We put a man on the moon in 1969. We were already mapping the surface of Mars with rovers. And yet, it took us until the 21st century to even get a blurry glimpse of the largest, most legendary monster on our own planet. It is a creature that has mastered the art of being a ghost. And it turns out, it's not even the biggest ghost down here. We have to go deeper. We are sinking past the 4,000-meter, 2.5-mile mark. We are leaving the midnight zone and entering the abyssopelagic zone, or the abyss. It stretches from 4,000 meters down to 6,000 meters. The pressure here is a mind-shattering 8,000 psi. The temperature is locked at just a degree or two above freezing. And the food, that gentle rain of marine snow, is now so thin, so picked over by the 4 kilometers of hungry mouths above, that it's almost non-existent. This is, without exaggeration, one of the most hostile, empty, and food-poor environments on the face of the Earth. And to find the next and final giant, we must also travel to the most hostile place on the surface of the Earth. We are going to the Antarctic, to the freezing, storm-lashed, ice-choked Southern Ocean. because it is here, in this frozen, abyssal hellscape, that the true heavyweight champion of the world lives. For a long time, we thought the giant squid was the king. It was the kraken, the longest of them all. But it's not. There is another. Meet Mesonicotuthis hamiltoni, the colossal squid. And it is in every way a different kind of monster. The giant squid, Architeuthis, is long, lightweight, and almost delicate. It is a drifter, a ghost. The colossal squid is a brute. It is a tank. It is a biological battle zeppelin. It is shorter than the giant squid, with estimates only putting it around 35 to 45 feet long. But it is heavier. So much heavier. This is our core scientific evidence. In 2007, a New Zealand fishing boat, legally hunting for toothfish in the Antarctic, pulled up a thing that was still impossibly alive on their line. It was a colossal squid. It took them 2 hours to haul the beast aboard. It was the largest, most intact specimen ever captured. When they got it back to port and weighed it, the scales settled at 495 kilograms, 1,100 pounds. And this was just a standard adult. Scientists who examined it believe they can get significantly bigger. This is, by mass, the single largest invertebrate on planet Earth. Nothing else? No other squid, no octopus, no crab, no sea serpent comes close. And every part of it is supersized. This is our quirky tidbit. It has the largest beak of any known squid, a jet-black, chitinous weapon of terrifying size and power. And just like its rival, the giant squid, it also has giant eyes, the size of dinner plates, to catch those faint bioluminescent sparks in the dark. It is, in every sense, a creature of pure, supersized, abyssal bulk. It is not a fast, nimble hunter. It is thought to be an ambush predator, but in a way that is totally different from the giant. It is a sit and wait, or more accurately, a drift and wait predator. It hangs, a neutrally buoyant 1,100-pound tank, in the blackness. It uses its giant fins to hover, motionless, waiting. It doesn't need to chase. It just needs to wait for something, like a large Antarctic toothfish, to make a single fatal mistake, to swim just a little, too close. And when that happens, it doesn't grab. It doesn't grapple. It deploys the most terrifying weapons in the entire cephalopod kingdom. This is the mainstream historical fact that separates it from all others. The giant squid has suckers lined with teeth. The colossal squid thinks that is adorable. The creepiness of the colossal squid is not in its mythology. It is a new 20th century monster. Its creepiness is not in its size, though its bulk is terrifying. Its creepiness is, quite simply, in its armaments. This is not a squid. This is a living mine, a biological weapons platform. Let's go back to our other giants. The Humboldt squid had those terrible toothed sucker rings, hundreds of tiny chitinous grappling hooks that ripped and tore. The giant squid, its rival, has a similar system. Its massive teacup-sized suckers are also lined with fine serrated rings of chitin. These are designed to grip and tear the tough hide of a sperm whale. Both are horrifying. Both are effective. The colossal squid, Mesonicototes, has no time for such primitive tools. It has done away with sucker rings almost entirely. It has evolved something far more brutal, something that feels like it belongs not in biology, but in a medieval torture chamber. This is the core scientific evidence. Embedded in the muscle of its 8 arms and 2 long feeding tentacles, the colossal squid has hooks. Not sucker teeth, not rings, but 2 full rows of massive, stand-alone, 3-pointed hooks. They are biological scythes, and they are not just claws. A cat's claw, or a bear's, is fixed. It's a simple, effective tearing tool. The colossal squid's hooks are a feat of biomechanical engineering. They are swiveling. Each hook is set into a deep, muscular, rotating socket. Think of it like a ball and socket joint, like your own shoulder. The hook itself is a razor-sharp, 3-pointed crown of pure black chitin. Now, imagine the attack. The squid, that 1,100-pound tank, has been drifting, waiting. A large Antarctic toothfish, itself a 6-foot, 100-pound predator, swims too close. The colossal squid's 2 feeding tentacles, which are also armed with a club of these swiveling hooks, don't just shoot out. They explode. The hooks don't grapple. They impale. They sink deep into the fish's flesh. And now, the true horror begins. The fish, naturally, struggles. It thrashes, it twists, it tries to pull away. And this is the genius of the swiveling hook. The moment the fish pulls, the hook rotates in its socket, turning the force of the escape against the prey. The hook digs deeper. Any attempt to flee, any struggle for life, only impales the fish further. It is a perfect biological ratchet. There is no escape. The fish is now held fast, impaled on these rotating talons. It is pulled from the long tentacles to the 8, shorter, immensely powerful arms. And these arms are also lined with 2 rows of these swiveling 3-pointed hooks. The fish is now in an Iron Maiden, a cage of rotating, inward-pointing, flesh-shredding daggers. It is held fast, completely immobilized, and dragged inexorably toward that giant, crushing beak. This is, without any exaggeration, the most heavily armed squid on the planet. The giant squid is a ghost that grips. The colossal squid is a tank that impales. This is our mainstream historical fact. For a long time, we knew something was different about the Antarctic giant. Whalers in the Southern Ocean, when they caught sperm whales, would find the same familiar circular sucker scars from giant squids. But they would also find a different set of scars. These were not neat circles. They were long, parallel, triple slashes. They were the autograph of Mesonicoteuthis, the deep, raking wounds left behind by these terrible, 3-pointed hooks. A final, defiant message from a creature that would not be eaten without a fight. This leads to the scholarly debate. Why the different weapons? Why did Architeuthis, giant, stick with toothed suckers, while Mesonicoteuthis, colossal, evolved these rotating hooks? The leading theory is that it's all about the prey. The giant squid is a generalist, hunting softer-bodied fish and other squids in temperate waters. The colossal squid is a specialist. It lives in the Antarctic and hunts the large, powerful, muscular Antarctic toothfish, a creature that requires a much more robust and inescapable weapon to secure. It built a better hook for a tougher fish. So, this is it. This is the ultimate who would win question. It's the deep-sea championship, the T-Rex versus Spinosaurus for the cephalopod world. In this corner, the kraken of legend, the long, fast, ghostly Architeuthis, the giant squid. And in this corner, the Antarctic tank, the heavy, brutal, hook-covered Mesonicoteuthis, the colossal squid. It's the classic, irresistible fantasy battle that scientists and enthusiasts have been arguing about for decades. This is the great scholarly debate of the abyssal titans. So, let's break down the tale of the tape. The giant squid's case is built on speed and reach. It is the fencer of the two. It is, by all estimates, the faster animal, with a more streamlined, though still gelatinous body. Its primary advantage is its two impossibly long feeding tentacles. It can strike from a distance, lashing out like a 40-foot, sucker-toothed whip. Its plan would be to stay on the outside, to jab and tear at the colossal with those chitinous sucker rings, using its superior length and agility to avoid a brawl. The colossal squid's case, on the other hand, is built on mass and power. It is the brawler. It is a 1,100-pound tank. It's slower, more ponderous, but it is a fortress of muscle and hooks. Its goal is the opposite. It wants to get into a close-quarters fight. It just needs to get one of its 8 hook-lined arms, or one of its 2 shorter hook-covered clubs, onto the giant squid. Just one touch. And that's where the fight is decided. Most scientists, when pressed, give the fight to the colossal squid. The giant's toothed suckers are nasty, but they are for gripping flesh. The colossal's swiveling, 3-pointed hooks are for impaling it. If the giant lashes out and the colossal manages to grab that tentacle, the fight is over. The hooks sink in. The swiveling sockets lock. The colossal, with its superior tank-like mass, would simply win the tug-of-war. It would reel the lighter giant squid in, pulling it from the safe zone into the death zone. And once the giant is pulled into that Iron Maiden embrace of the colossal's 8 hook-lined arms, it's just a matter of time before it's shredded and dragged to that massive, bone-crushing beak. It's a brutal, decisive, and thrilling victory for the colossal. And it will never, ever happen. This is the great anticlimactic punchline. This is our mainstream historical fact and the core scientific evidence. The reason we have to speculate about this fight, the reason it's a fantasy, is because these two creatures will never meet. They are two kings ruling two completely separate parallel empires. Their habitats do not overlap. The giant squid, Architeuthis, is a global species, yes, but it is a cosmopolitan giant of the temperate and tropical deep. It lives in the deep, dark, but relatively warm, a few degrees above freezing waters of the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Indian Ocean. The colossal squid, Mesonicoteuthis, is not a global species. It is a specialist. It is a circumpolar Antarctic creature. It only lives in the deep, freezing, ice-choked waters of the Southern Ocean, a hostile environment of sub-zero water temperatures. They are separated by thousands of miles of ocean and by a massive temperature barrier that neither species is built to cross. So the debate is fun, but it's a human invention. The creepiest part, our quirky tidbit, is not that they would fight each other. It's that they do fight a common enemy. They are two separate resistance movements in two separate parts of the world, fighting the same invader. The sperm whale. The whale is the true king. It is the only predator on Earth that is specialized enough to hunt both of these giants in their respective fortified kingdoms. The sperm whales of the Atlantic hunt the giant squids. The sperm whales of the Antarctic dive down to fight the colossal squids. This is how we know them. The evidence of these two separate wars is what we find on the whales' bodies. The neat circular sucker scars tell of a battle with a giant. Those long, parallel triple slashes tell of a far more brutal hooked encounter with a colossal. The clash of the titans is real, but it is not squid versus squid. It is the world of the deep, dark, and cold, in all its creepy, gelatinous, hooked, and giant-eyed glory, versus the world of the warm-blooded, air-breathing, sonar-blasting invader. We're sinking. We are leaving the giants behind, the vast, echoing battlefields of the whales and the titans. We are descending past 4,000 meters. We leave the abyssopelagic zone, the abyss, and we just keep. We are now past 6,000 meters. That's 3.7 miles down. We are now entering the final, deepest and most alien domain on our planet. This is the Hadal zone. And you need to understand, this isn't a zone like the others. The Midnight Zone and the Abyss were vast, open, global layers. The Hadal zone is different. It's not a layer. It's a series of holes. It is the deep ocean trenches. The Mariana Trench, the Tonga Trench, the Kermadec Trench. These are the deep, V-shaped scars in the planet's crust, the places where the tectonic plates are diving back down into the mantle. This is the underworld in its most literal sense. It is the world from 6,000 meters all the way down to the deepest known point on Earth, the bottom of the Challenger Deep, nearly 11,000 meters down. That is almost 7 miles. The environment here is not just extreme, it is fundamentally alien. The rules of our world do not apply. Let's talk about the pressure. This is the core scientific evidence. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the pressure is 16,000 pounds per square inch, PS1. Our 50 jumbo jets analogy is broken. This is not 50 jets. This is 1,000 atmospheres of pressure. It is the equivalent of having 3 military-grade Humvees stacked, one on top of the other, with all their weight resting perfectly on your thumbnail. This pressure is so profound that it changes the very laws of chemistry. It compresses the water molecules themselves, making the water thicker, more viscous. It slows down chemical reactions, including the chemical reactions of life, to a crawl. The temperature is locked, just a single lonely degree above freezing. And the food? That marine snow we spoke of, that life-giving blizzard, it's gone. After falling for 7 miles through a gauntlet of hungry mouths, almost nothing makes it down here. The ground beneath you isn't sand or rock or even mud. It is a fine primordial ooze. It is a thick, silty, pale gray carpet made of the compressed skeletal remains of eons of microscopic plankton, the silica and calcium dust from 1 million years of life that died in the sun, all of it compressed into a dense, cold, forgotten graveyard. This is our mainstream historical fact. For all of human history, this place was more impossible to reach, more alien, than the surface of the moon. When the bathyscaphe Trieste, piloted by Jacques Picker and Don Walsh, made the first and only human descent to the bottom in 1960, it was the last frontier. The pressure was so immense that one of the outer plexiglass windows cracked under the strain. They spent 20 minutes at the bottom of the world, in a metal sphere, looking out at a plain of diatomaceous ooze, proving that life, something, could exist even there. In this profound, crushing, foodless desert, a meal is not a meal. It is not even an event. It is a miracle. It is a windfall. And the single most important event, the Hadal zone's equivalent of a supernova, is our quirky tidbit, the whale fall. We've mentioned it before, but here it is everything. When that 40-ton whale dies 7 miles above, its carcass falls. It falls for days, maybe weeks. A slow, silent, black funeral procession. When it finally comes to rest in that primordial ooze, it is a blessing from a god this world cannot even comprehend. This one, single corpse, this injection of millions of calories, can create a new, thriving, complex, and hyper-specialized ecosystem for 50 to 100 years. First, the mobile scavengers arrive from the black. The blind, eel-like hagfish, the ghostly white, six-gilled sleeper sharks. They gorge for months or even years. Then, after the flesh is gone, the enrichment specialists arrive. The Osedax worms, the zombie worms, land on the skeleton. They don't have mouths. They grow roots, and these roots secrete a powerful acid that dissolves the whale's bones, allowing the worms to feed on the tiny trapped lipids, fats, inside. This single dead whale is a century of life. This is the world, a place of 16,000 PSY, near freezing temperatures, primordial ooze, and food that arrives, if you are lucky, once in your great-great-great-grandmother's lifetime. A normal body is impossible. A gelatinous body is barely enough. This is the great scholarly debate. Scientists are still fiercely arguing whether the Hadal zone is a separate biological world or just the deep end of the abyss. The species they find here, the strange, translucent snailfish, the amphipods, are often 100% endemic, meaning they are found only in that one specific trench and nowhere else on Earth. This suggests they are trapped by the pressure, evolving in total crushing isolation, like life on a tiny, dark, high-pressure island. So, what kind of squid can live here? What kind of impossible, hyper-specialized ultimate other can call this place home? It has to be a creature built only for this, a true specialist. But before we meet it, we have to ask the final, and in many ways creepiest, question of all. In this cold, pressurized, empty, 7-mile deep void, how do you even find a date? This is perhaps the final and creepiest problem of all. We've solved pressure, we've solved buoyancy, we've solved, in a way, the problem of food, either by luring it or by becoming a passive, dust-eating ghost. But we have not solved the single, fundamental, biological imperative, reproduction. How? In a world that is 99.9% empty, three-dimensional, pitch-black space, do you find a mate? Think about it. You are a 1-pound, gelatinous, neutrally buoyant creature, drifting in a zone that is 7 miles deep and thousands of miles wide. You cannot put out a personal ad. You cannot go to a bar. You cannot swipe right. You cannot see a mate. You cannot smell a mate from any meaningful distance, and you cannot call out for one. If you are lucky, you might, by pure, dumb, statistical chance, bump into another member of your species, once in your entire decades-long life. This is not a challenge, it is a logistical impossibility. And the solutions that evolution has come up with in the deep are, without question, the most bizarre, desperate, and alien of all. This is our mainstream historical fact, the most famous and horrifying example. The anglerfish. We've all seen the pictures. That big, creepy, toothy monster with the glowing lure. That is the female. And that tiny, pathetic, shrimp-like thing that looks like it's biting her. That is the male. And he is not biting her. He is fusing with her. This is the scientific evidence known as sexual parasitism. The male anglerfish is born for one purpose. He has no lure. He has no functional digestive system. He is essentially a swimming nose built to do one thing: find the faint, pheromonal trace of a female in that vast black ocean. And if by some miracle he finds her, he bites her, and he never, ever lets go. His body fuses to hers. His skin and blood vessels merge with hers. His jaw dissolves. His eyes, his brain, his organs, they all atrophy and disappear. He becomes nothing more than a backpack, a living attached parasitic pair of testicles, drawing all his nutrients from her blood and providing her with the one thing she needs on demand for the rest of her life. It is the ultimate, desperate, and profoundly unromantic solution to the lonely problem. So, how do squids do it? This is the great echoing void in our knowledge. This is the scholarly debate where the answer is mostly just a shrug. We don't know. We have almost never, ever seen deep-sea cephalopods mate. We have no idea how the giant squid does it. We have no idea how the colossal does it. We are, once again, detectives trying to solve the biggest mystery of all from the tiniest, most confusing clues. What are the clues? They're unsettling. This is our quirky tidbit. For some species of deep-sea squid, we find dwarf males. Tiny, half-sized males that are clearly mature, suggesting they are a low-energy, get-it-done-fast model. For other species, we'll haul up a female, and her body will be covered in sperm packets, little torpedo-shaped packages called spermatophores. But they aren't placed in a neat, receptive opening. They are just there. They have been found stabbed into her skin, in her mantle, on her head, on her arms. The theory is as grim as it sounds. In the total blackness, a male, by pure chance, bumps into something. He has no idea if it's a rock, a predator, or a female of his species. He has one job. He stabs it with his specialized arm, the hectocotylus, injecting his sperm packets directly into its skin, and then flees into the dark. It is a drive-by injection, a spermatic stabbing. The sperm is then thought to migrate, slowly, through the female's own tissues to eventually find and fertilize her eggs. For other related cephalopods, the solution is different. We've seen the Dumbo octopus, a relative of our vampire squid, brooding its eggs. The female will carry her fertilized eggs, holding them in her webbed arms, for years, possibly as many as 5 or 7 years, as she drifts through the cold, dark, foodless void. She does this so that her young can hatch as perfect, fully formed, large-scale adults, ready to succumb. It is a level of parental care, an investment of energy that is almost unbelievable. Is this what our deep-sea squids do? Are they drive-by stabbers? Are they long-term brooding mothers? Or have they evolved something even stranger, a solution we haven't even dreamed of? We don't know. The Hadal zone keeps its secrets, and it is in this impossible, lonely, crushing void that we find our final and most creepy creature of all. And so, we arrive at the bottom of the world. The Hadal zone. The 16,000 psi, 7-mile deep, isolated, freezing, primordial ooze. This is the last, most impossible, most alien place on Earth. And it is here that we meet our final and most creepy creature of all. But this isn't an animal in the way we've met the others. This isn't a creature we have studied, dissected, or understood. We have no name for its hooks. We have no analysis of its blood. We have no historical fact from Pliny the Elder. This is a 21st century monster. This is a creature that, for all of human history, did not exist. It is a ghost. It is a rumor. It is a shape that haunts the grainy, low-light footage of our deepest diving machines. Meet the Magnappina, the big fin squid. This is our mainstream historical fact. The creature is known to us only from these remote encounters. The first credible footage was captured in 1988 by the French submersible Nautil, while it was surveying the seabed off the coast of Brazil, thousands of meters down. But it wasn't a discovery. It was a, what the hell was that? It wasn't until 1998, 2000, and 2007, as more and more deep-sea ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, began to patrol the deep, that a pattern emerged. In the Gulf of Mexico, off the coast of Hawaii, in the Indian Ocean, this same impossible shape kept appearing, a silent phantom drifting past the camera, bathed for just a few fleeting seconds in the harsh glare of the submersible's lights. And the shape is what makes it so creepy. This is our quirky tidbit. When that first 1988 footage was reviewed, it was so biologically wrong, so baffling, that scientists on the ship reportedly speculated that the ROV's camera was broken, or that they were seeing a piece of ocean trash, or some kind of bizarre unknown jellyfish. It could not be a squid. Squids don't do that. Here is what you see in that grainy footage. First, a small gelatinous body, maybe a foot long. It looks less like a mantle and more like a hoodie. And attached to this hood, where you would expect ears, are two enormous, pale, paddle-like fins. These fins flap. Slowly, gracefully, like a Dumbo octopus. This is the scientific evidence. This is its only apparent form of propulsion. A slow, gentle, ghostly rowing through the black. And then, you see the arms. And this is where your brain breaks. From the bottom of that small hood, 10 appendages emerge, and they are impossibly long and impossibly thin. They are not tentacles. They are filaments. They are spider silk. They are like living monofilament fishing line. They are so thin, you can barely see them. And they just fall. They fall and fall and fall. The ROV's lights can't even find the ends of them. Based on scaling from the known size of the ROV, scientists have estimated the total length of these filaments to be 20, 25, or, in one case, a staggering 26 feet. This is a creature that is 95% string. But it's not the length that is the true, uncanny, skin-crawling horror. It's the posture. This is the detail that separates the Magnappina from everything else in the ocean. The filaments don't just dangle straight down like a jellyfish's. Number. They are held out rigidly from the body, and then, at a sharp, precise, impossible 90-degree angle, they bend. The Magnappina has elbows. Let that sink in. A squid. With elbows. The 8 arms and 2 tentacles are completely, totally indistinguishable. They are all just these long, thin, identical strings. And they are all held in this perfect geometric, broken puppet posture. It looks less like a living animal and more like a wind chime. It looks like a biological string puppet whose master 7 miles above has just let go. It is a creature of impossible rigid angles. This is why it's the creepiest of all. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine, and after a lifetime on this planet, you know what biology is allowed to look like. Squids are fluid. They are jets. They are curves. They are fleshy. They are not geometric 90-degree stick figure drawings. The magna pinna is a glitch in biology. It is a stick figure monster sketched by a child, brought to life in a place that does not obey our rules. And because we have never, ever caught a mature one, a few tiny larval stage, big fin squid have been found, but their arms are short. The scholarly debate is everything. We know nothing. We are literally just ghost hunting with billion-dollar submarines. Scientists are still fiercely arguing whether the dozen or so sightings are all one single cosmopolitan species, or if we are accidentally looking at an entire new family of these elbowed ghosts, an entire evolutionary lineage of stick-figure squids that has been ruling the deep in total silent anonymity since the beginning of time. So what is this thing? What is this 26-foot-long, elbow-jointed stick-figure puppet doing in the deepest, most crushing part of our planet? With no specimens to dissect, all we have is grainy, haunting footage, and the scholarly debate rages. But the leading theory, the one that seems to explain everything, is that we are looking at the final, ultimate, perfect form of deep-sea adaptation. We are looking at the evolution of patience. This isn't a hunter. This is a trap. This is the core scientific evidence pieced together from those few, precious, fleeting video clips. The magna pinna is thought to be the ultimate in energy-saving passive predation. It is a creature that has traded all of its muscle, all of its speed, for a life of near total stillness. Those two huge ear-like fins, they aren't for swimming, they are for hovering. The footage shows them flapping, slowly, gracefully, rhythmically, just enough to keep the squid's body perfectly, motionlessly, neutrally buoyant, a few feet above the primordial ooze of the seafloor. And then, the net. This is the why of the elbows. This is the quirky and frankly genius-level tidbit of its design. Why the 90-degree bend? Because if you are a creature with 10 26-foot-long, spaghetti-thin, sticky filaments, and you just let them dangle, what happens? They tangle. Instantly. You would become a hopeless 26-foot-long rat's nest, a useless knotted ball of your own arms. The elbows are the solution. They are a miracle of hydrostatic pressure and fine muscle control. By holding its arms out, rigidly, and then letting the filaments fall, the squid creates a curtain, a web, a living fishing net that is dozens of feet wide. The elbows are separators. They are biological outriggers that keep each sticky, invisible line perfectly, beautifully apart from all the others. And so, it waits. It does not hunt. It does not chase. It does not even lure. It is a living, breathing, drifting spider web. It hangs motionless for days, for weeks, for months, waiting for a blind deep-sea crustacean like a giant amphipod or a slow, stupid, ghostly snailfish to make one single, tiny, final mistake. To just bump into one of those invisible, sticky, 26-foot-long filaments. And then what? The footage doesn't show a strike. There is no whip. That would be a catastrophic waste of energy, and it would tangle the entire net. No, the theory is that the magna pinna, upon sensing a vibration, a struggle on line number 7, just reels, slowly, methodically. It is believed to coil that one single filament up, like a fisherman pulling in a line, hand over hand, foot by foot, from 26 feet away. It is a slow, efficient, inexorable retrieval, until the struggling, doomed by a single touch prey finally reaches the squid's hidden, waiting beak. This is the creepiest adaptation of them all. It's not the horror of the Humboldt's aggression. It's not the awe of the colossal's size. It is the creepiness of the void. It is the horror of absolute stillness. It is a living ghost. It's an animal that has so perfectly adapted to an environment with no energy that it has become that environment. It is a creature that has traded all normal squid-like behavior, the jet propulsion, the chromatophore flashing, the muscular life, for a state of being that is almost geological. It is a living, patient, intelligent rock, and this leads to our mainstream historical fact. For over a century, deep-sea explorers, from the Challenger expedition in the 1870s to the Albatross expeditions in the 1900s, had a recurring, baffling problem. When they hauled their deep-sea trawls up from 6,000 meters, the nets would often be covered in bizarre, miles-long slime nets or mucus webs. Scientists at the time, like the great Alexander Agassiz, had no idea what to make of them. They were attributed to unknown, giant, primitive jellyfish, or perhaps proto-organisms. Scientists are now actively debating a new, chilling theory. Were some of these mystery slime nets not jellyfish at all? Were they, in fact, the broken, shredded, and dissolved 26-foot-long fishing lines of a magna pinna, an animal that had just melted, leaving behind only the ghost of its own trap? So we ask the question we started with. Why do squids get creepier the deeper you go? And after this journey, the answer is finally beautifully clear. It's a trick question. The squids don't get creepier. The environment gets more alien. The creepiness isn't in them. It's in us. It is a word we use, a word born of our own land-based, sun-loving bias. Creepy is just the label we put on any adaptation that doesn't fit our rules. Think about our rules. We are land-based, air-breathing, warm-blooded, visual creatures. We are built for a high-energy, high-speed, one-atmosphere world, bathed in the full, rich, warm spectrum of sunlight. Our definition of normal life is based on muscle, on speed, on color, on sound, on running and chasing. The deep sea, as we've seen, is the perfect 180-degree opposite. It is an anti-world. It is a world of 16,000 PSY, of eternal, freezing, total blackness. It is a world where energy is so scarce that speed is a form of suicide. And so, this environment forces the opposite adaptations. The deep sea selects against muscle and for gelatinous bodies, because buoyancy is more important than speed. We see that as flabby and creepy. It selects against speed and for patience. It creates the vampire squid, a zombie that eats dust, and the magna pinna, a living rock that waits for months for a single meal. We see that as unnatural and creepy. It selects against our rules of shape. It creates the Promachoteuthis lips, not for chewing, but for precise microscopic suction. It creates the Magna Pinna's elbows, not because they are broken, but because it's the only way to deploy a 26-foot-long, non-tangled fishing net. We see these shapes as monstrous and creepy. It selects against our senses. It forces creatures to give up on normal eyes and instead evolve basketball-sized spark detectors like the giant squid or the asymmetrical spy goggle eyes of the strawberry squid. We see this as grotesque and creepy. The creepiness of the deep-sea squid is just a mirror. It's a reflection of how truly, profoundly alien the deep ocean is to us. These creatures are not monsters. They are the ultimate survivors. They are the masterpieces of evolution. They are the perfect, logical, and, in their own way, beautiful solutions to a set of problems so extreme we can barely even comprehend them. And here is the final, humbling, and perhaps most creepy fact of all. This is our mainstream historical fact. We are a species that has walked on the moon. We have sent rovers to the surface of Mars, and we have mapped its surface in high resolution. We have pointed the Webb telescope at the very dawn of time and seen the first galaxies being born. And yet, right here, on our own planet, under our own feet, less than 5% of our own deep ocean has been seen. Not studied, not understood, just seen by a human or a robot, even once. 95% of the largest single connected habitat on our planet is, to us, a complete and total blank. This is our quirky tidbit, and the one that should keep you awake. Scientists, in their most sober academic estimates, believe there are between 1 million and 10 million undiscovered species living in the deep sea. 1 million to 10 million. The Magna Pinna, that grainy 26-foot elbowed stick figure ghost. That's not the end boss. That's not the ultimate monster. That's just the one we've accidentally glimpsed a dozen times. That's just the one that drifted past our headlights while we were looking for something else. What else is down there, in that 95% of blackness that has evolved in that 16,000 PSY, crushing, silent, eternal void? What kind of solutions has evolution built that we haven't even dreamed of yet? And so, we arrive at the final truth. The creepiness of the deep-sea squid is, in the end, just a perfect reflection of our own ignorance. These creatures are not monsters. They are not nightmares or mistakes or aliens. They are the ultimate, perfect survivors. They are the quiet, gelatinous, and often terrifying masterpieces of evolution, built to thrive in an environment so extreme, so hostile, that we can barely even visit it in our billion-dollar titanium spheres. The monstrous features we see are just solutions. We look at the Promachoteuthis and see a creepy human-like grin. We are wrong. We are looking at a delicate, precise, hyper-specialized feeding tool for sucking up microscopic prey in a food desert. We look at the giant squid's Architeuthis eye and see a grotesque giant orb. We are wrong. We are looking at the most sophisticated defensive shield on the planet, a biological telescope built for one purpose: to see a 50-ton monster coming. We look at the Magna Pinna and see broken, impossible, stick figure elbows. We are completely, totally wrong. We are looking at a stroke of pure, unadulterated, evolutionary genius. The only way to deploy a 26-foot-long, non-tangled, passive fishing net in a world where you cannot afford the energy to even move. They are the logical answers to a set of problems so far outside our own experience. The results can only look like something from a nightmare or a dream. The real monster is not the squid. The real monster is the environment itself. The real monster is the 16,000 psi, the 7-mile deep, the absolute, crushing, eternal, freezing dark. These creatures, in all their bizarre and creepy glory, are just the ones that learned over 100 million years to call it home. And so, as our imaginary submersible slowly begins its ascent, we leave that dark, silent world behind. The strange, gelatinous bodies, the giant, searching eyes, and the long, patient filaments of the magna pinna fade back into the gloom. They will continue their slow, ancient dance, a battle for survival fought with patience and chemicals and light, completely unaware of our fleeting, noisy passage. As we rise back through the midnight zone, past the realm of the vampire squid, and up into the Twilight Zone, where the water begins to shift from black to a deep, velvety indigo, you can feel the pressure receding. A faint, silvery blue glow appears above. It's the sun. Our sun. A reminder of the other world, our world, waiting for us. A world of air and warmth and light. The journey is over. It's time to rest.